Hello students, welcome to your discussion for science and tech for your last simulator. We are going to use this test as an opportunity to see not only how we're doing these questions, but also how to mold our revisions accordingly. How do you revise all of the content that you have while you're doing the questions? With that, let's move on to the first question. This is a little bit of a generic question and from Polity also. The question reads, in India, the right to digital access is an intrinsic component of which of the following article of the Constitution? So a lot of us are quite fearful of the fact that if they ask us articles from the Constitution, how many of them do we have to memorize? It is a limited scope. There is a limited area of the articles that we must know. And these are the heat zones. These are the important articles that we almost keep on discussing time and again. This is coming directly from fundamental rights, which is something that we must ensure that we have on our tips, because the same question has been asked multiple times in different articles, but the type of question is the same. Now, while you're reading the question, what are the hints that are available? They're saying the right to digital access. What you have to ask yourself is digital access to what? Right? It is not digital access to just social media resources or news resources. Digital media's access to what? To things like e-governance and to welfare schemes. If you have that in your mind, that will help you identify what part of the freedom, what part of fundamental rights are we going to direct ourselves towards, right? So that is about the question interpretation from this aspect. Digital access to what? Welfare and schemes, right? If you think of it that way, then it becomes a fundamental thing which must be afforded to all of our citizens. Then the next step that you have to do is we have to revise in our head what are the fundamental rights that we remember, right? I'm sure all of you do remember fundamental rights is in Article 12 to 35, right? But from 12 to 35, what segment has what articles is something that we have to revise in our mind, right? So, 14 to 18 is what? Equality, right? 19 to 22 is what? Freedom. Then 23 to 24, exploitation, against exploitation, and so on and so forth. That segment has to be very clear in your mind. If that is clear, then you look at the options and then you're able to identify that, okay, this article corresponds to this. So 23 is against trafficking and forced labor, right? What? Freedom of speech and expression. 21 is life. 29 is what? 29 is cultural and gay educational rights, right? So this is cultural and educational. Now, once you thought of these things, we have to match it with welfare and schemes. Where does that land towards? That has to go towards life and liberty, because schemes and welfare, public access to such things, public access to these modes are going to help you move towards life and liberty, which is going to be my answer on Article 21, option C. All right. So we use this question to figure out what are the things that we must revise, how do we mug them up, how do we do question interpretation, and how do we land towards the right answer. Of course, a different paradigm of this question could be that this demand is linked towards another article. So for that parallel similar question also, we have to keep ourselves prepared. All right. So that was question 6 for you. Then moving towards core science and tech questions now. See, for science and tech, what happens is a little bit of preparation is very, very necessary in terms of the current affairs. Otherwise, you won't be able to recognize the terms. The concepts will be there, but the terms are going to give you a sense of fright. So the question reads, snow blind and fat boy panel recently seen in the news are the what, right? So we have to look at these names. And of course, there is a certain perception that people tend to form by themselves also. Matlab, when you're looking at the name and it says fat boy panel, you know that it's not a serious name. I wouldn't name a missile fat boy panel, right? So if you're thinking of that, then you look at the options also. Improvised explosive devices, military grade surveillance drones, advanced semiconductor chipsets and malwares. These things, would you think that they would be named fat boy panel? And again, in the current geopolitical situation that we are in, if you're just living in these times, you will mug up, you will learn the names of drones, whether you want it or not, right? So this question, in the way that it will be asked, some elimination is quite easy simply by making this linkage that the names don't sound the way that they should. Do you get it? So those aspects also we have to keep in mind. The answer here is going to be malwares, but we do have to prepare a little bit about these two malwares as well. So Snowblind, what does it do? So there is this operating system called Linux, right? Linux is believed to be a more secure sort of this thing, operating system, and what it has is it has this internal protocol, internal mechanism for the operating system to talk to different apps in the internet. So that thing is called system calls, right? It has its own sense of security. What this particular type of malware does is it goes and uses and attacks this method of internal communication, right? So to have that security, the system will limit the number of calls it can make to the server, it can make to the OS. That limitation, that time period is exploited by this Snowblind. So what are they saying? They're saying that while it's snowing, it's able to blind the software. All right. So that is what happens. Because of this, what it's able to tamper with is banking applications. So that is about Snowblind. And Fatboy Panel. Fatboy Panel is a thing. It is a malware which was operating on Android softwares, Android systems. So udhar what was happening was that these mechanisms, it can infect the users if it gets if it gets installed onto your device. So again, it's an Android platform based thing which can get installed in your device, and from there it can sort of keep listening to your conversations and your data. So that is what it was. A little bit of information can help you memorize what happens over here. So there, what it can do is that you know how there are botnets, you're using Telegram and you text something and you get this robot type of response. So this Fatboy Panel malware, what it does is it's going to be a huge panel jahan se you can control all of these different bots, right? So if you give a command that, okay, go send this information to everybody, Fatboy Panel is going to be able to help you do that. All right. So this is the type of malware that it is. Of course, it can be used to create other types of attack also. All right. So Snowblind and Fatboy Panel are these types of malware. This is what you have to remember. Then the next question is, with reference to small modular reactors, consider the following statements. So whenever you get a multiple statement type question, our behavior has to be very clear. I identify that, okay, we are looking for the correct statements. They've given me a list of 4 statements and the topic is small modular reactor, right? When this topic is something that you identify from your syllabus, from your preparation, the question will feel more easy. If it's something which is something that you don't recognize also, even then we have to do this question because the pattern is something that we should be able to follow, right? Now, small modular reactor is something which is very, very in news this year because it was referred to in the budget, right? Now, there is this consensus that goes on in the teaching market and in students' minds that anytime UPSC gives us some sort of fact, it is going to be wrong. But when it is the sort of fact which is a lot in discussion, that means that fact you have to know for sure, and of course it may be correct. Now these sort of preconceived notions, they can affect your behavior and thought in the exam. So even if you know that the fact is correct, the feeling that array normally facts are wrong is going to interfere with you making the right decision. So when you recognize the topic, it is necessary that you operate in a way that we're able to do the question well, right? So yahan pe fact is important, is something that we have to identify. So SMRs are advanced nuclear reactors. This is true, with the power generation capacity ranging from less than 30 megawatts to 300 megawatts, right? So it's saying what are the numbers in which these small modular reactors are going to operate. Is it 30 megawatts to 300 megawatts? That is correct, right? So first statement is correct for us. If it is correct, option B gets eliminated. Okay, then SMRs do not produce any radioactive waste. This any has to be identified. SMR, you have to know it has to be a nuclear reactor. If it is a nuclear reactor, naturally some nuclear waste is going to be generated. Now, specifically for small modular reactors, what happens is, because it is the sort of technology in which something which takes a large infrastructure that is being compressed into a smaller module, into a smaller thing, right? A smaller generation capacity, that sort of model, the design, of course it will not be as efficient as a larger factory. Do you see somebody who's producing something in a large factory, say an automobile, their efficiencies will be a lot higher, their waste generation will be a lot lesser. Whereas if you're doing it in your garage, you will generate more waste, you'll take more time. By that same logic, small modular reactors are not going to be as efficient as a larger reactor, right? They will generate more waste. And that will, at any rate, will not mean that they don't produce any waste at all. That cannot be possible, right? So that's why 2 has to be eliminated from all of the options that we have, which will help me arrive at the right answer. But we must always keep on reading the rest of the question also. The rest of the question reads, presently India does not have any operational SMRs. This is correct because we have pressurized heavy water reactors that we are using according to our 3-step power program. Then, production of low cost hydrogen is one of the non-electrical applications of SMR. Non-electrical applications of SMR means that I'm using a small modular reactor to generate electricity. But it is not necessary that I am going to sell that electricity as the final product, right? It may be that I'm going to use this energy to do something else, right? So I can use it to create hydrogen, which will be a store of energy. I can do it for desalination of water. I can do it for, say, a project in which there has to be space heating, industrial application, cooling, such things. So it could be that the modular reactor is linked to another service which has to be provided in that region, right? So among that, production of low carbon hydrogen is an application that we must select. So my answer is C. From elimination, I was going to arrive at it, and the 4th statement also supports my answer. All right. So my answer is C. Then the next question was mycelium bricks, recently seen in the news. So mycelium, whether or not you recognize, that is going to impact if you can do this question or not. Mycelium means that, see, that there is fungus. You must have seen fungus in your life. It has these fibers in it. Oftentimes there'll be fibrous wala fungus in which it looks like strands, right? So like bread mold, that line wala fungus is there. All right. That fiber, just as we use cellulose to make a lot of things, we can also use that fungus wala fibers to create different materials, right? What we're talking about here is bricks that are produced out of these materials. The larger category of these materials, it's called mycelium composites. Right. So in material engineering and in creation, biomaterial engineering also, you can create textile out of it, you can create bricks out of it, you can create any number of things. Specifically here, we're talking about bricks. So they are produced by growing fungal mycelia on organic waste materials. If you understand the group, the topic from where this is coming, this statement becomes easily verifiable for me. So this is correct, right? So mycelium fungus, say if it's being created, so naturally it will be manufactured in this way. The next thing is that they provide higher tensile strength than conventional construction bricks. Now, some of you will be coming from science backgrounds and some of you will not be, right? What you have to understand is what is tensile strength. If you have something that is going to break, for example, if you've got a cable and it is being tensed, it is being pulled, so it may break from inside eventually, right? Now, of course, for things that are stretchable, we do encounter this property a lot more in daily life. You know, rubber bands that are going to stretch. If you try and check a strand of your hair, it'll pull and then it'll break, right? So tensile strength means that when you're pulling something, right before it breaks, how much force can it sort of deal with, right? How much can it endure? When you're talking about a brick may also be pulled. Say if there's an earthquake or if there is weight of the material on it, eventually that brick is also going to feel a bit of tensile strain, right? Now, of course, in brittle things, you will not see a lot of stretch, but even then that tensile ability to hold that force is going to be there. So a hard brick, a strong brick which has good cohesion, matlab the particles, the sand, everything that is there in the brick, it is going to be stuck together. It will naturally be able to hold a lot more force as compared to, think of something like, have you seen a cocoa peat ka brick? Cocoa peat you get for gardening, coconut ka jo fiber, uska they make a brick, right? Or you get like a very thick piece of cardboard. Of course, it will be strong. It will not be as strong in terms of dealing with force as a brick, right? So from that logic, you should be able to identify, if you're non-science, that yes, the feeling of what is strong enough to bear that strength, we have to identify according to that. So yes, they don't have higher tensile strength, they will have lower tensile strength, that construction bricks. But then the question is going to arrive that if they are weaker, why are we using these bricks? We are using these bricks because production of conventional bricks is going to happen in that kiln, you know, KILN, in that thing with the chimney that you see when you go on a road trip, right? Conventional bricks are going to be fired there, they're going to be baked there, there's going to be carbon footprint there. Whereas all of this, which is coming from a fungus, it can be made with a much lower carbon footprint, right? So it's not about tensile strength. So this has to be eliminated. You will get your answer from there, but we do have to keep on reading. They have the potential to reduce the carbon footprint of the construction sector. And this is what I was talking about. This is being, mycelium bricks are being pursued, are being looked at because they would help reduce the carbon footprint of the construction sector, so that the bricks don't have to be baked, right? So that fossil fuel expenditure does not have to happen there. They're highly flammable and prone to fire damage. This is not true. If that is, if this was true, then using this as a construction material would be a bad idea. If it is so flammable, I told you that mycelium composites can have a wide variety, a different range of things that can be made out of it. So it would not be necessary to deploy them in the construction sector if they were this highly flammable and prone to fire damage, right? So 4 also has to be eliminated. I already arrived at that answer because of the tensile strength, right? So if you're eliminating, you will also see that even if you just identify 4 as something that must be eliminated, even then you would come to the right answer. Okay? Because 1 has to be there and 4 does not have to be there. And that will help you figure out what happens with tensile strength, right? So in the UPSC exam also, the options are going to help you arrive at the real answer. More often than not, the inflection points, the statements that are going to help you identify the correct answer, they will be something guided by logic, or they will be something guided by NCERT information, not GK information. The next question was with reference to cryopreservation. Again, we've talked about this again and again. I would want you to break the word down into its constituents. Cryopreservation. Cryo means cold, frozen, right? Preservation, you know, that if I'm trying to preserve something by freezing it, by keeping it very, very cold, right? Which of the following statements is incorrect? This incorrect is something which should be marked out in your test, because that is proof that you've read it and you've figured it out, you've comprehended that I'm looking for the wrong statement among these groups. All right. So it is a technique used to preserve biological samples by cooling them to sub-zero temperatures. Cooling them to sub-zero temperatures, you're okay. The only doubt that may arise in your mind could be, is it only for biological specimens or can it be for everything else, right? If they're saying it is a technique which is used to do this, they're not saying it is used to do only this. Do we see this distinction? It is saying it is a technique, cryopreservation is a technique used to preserve biological samples. They're not saying it is a technique used to only preserve biological samples, which is why this has to be treated as correct. Do we see this? This is something that we have to make sure of. The next statement, it enables the storage and transportation of stem cells without altering their genetic composition. It enables. Again, it is not the only use case, but it is something that supports this to happen, right? Again, when you know that stem cells are stored, this thing you've studied in, say, genetics, that we have stem cell banks, we have egg banks, all these things, you know, right? So if they are stored, the understanding is they have to be stored at a temperature in which they can be kept viable, right? So that's why even in general language, you'll say that this person is freezing their eggs. They've frozen their baby's stem cells, right? So frozen means what? That they're putting that in, these things in cryopreservation, right? So the technology will help you protect this. And again, there has to be other things that are added in so that the methodology has to be more complicated so that the DNA, the genetic information, is not compromised, right? Then it uses liquid nitrogen to facilitate the rapid freezing of biological materials. This is true, and you would have come across this tidbit of information in other aspects also in the test that you've been doing. Liquid nitrogen and the guidelines that have come out of it, right? Where to use it, where to not use it, all those things have been in news, which is why valid thing to talk about. So this statement is also correct. Then it prevents the production of excess embryos during IVF. Now, during IVF, if you're trying to do this fertilization of the egg and the sperm, you won't do it in frozen conditions. You would want that to be living cells, right? So that's why this could not be the correct statement. This has to be marked wrong in your exam. You have to know that, okay, it is incorrect. And then you mark it again that this is the answer that I have to bubble in my OMR. So the answer for 93 has to be D. Then another thing for this cryopreservation is a little bit of extra information could also be helpful. There is something called cryoprotectants. Cryoprotectants is also a class of materials that you should know. When you're doing cryopreservation, what will happen is that water in all of the biological samples is going to freeze. Now, water freezes in crystals, and you also know that water will expand when it freezes, right? So water density is the maximum at 4 degrees Celsius. So that means before and after 4 degrees Celsius, it will be larger in size, right? So water is going to compress and then expand. Because of that, that water ka crystal could create damage in biological samples, which is why you will use something called a cryoprotectant, which is what it is going to be a material that will prevent that biological material from getting damaged from that water ka frozen crystal, right? So it could be something that you're putting on top of the biological sample. So say if you're trying to preserve biological samples, right? So they'll embalm it something. Embalm it means that, you know, how you do, how you mummify something. So you'll put a bunch of paste and then you'll mummify it. So if you're trying to cryopreserve a biological sample, sometimes it will be covered in some sort of protective thing so that the freezing point of water is changed, right? Or you can add a solvent, add like a solute into the water so that the freezing point is also changed, and because of that the damage could be changed, could be prevented. So these class of material are called cryoprotectants, and the process was what? Cryopreservation. All right, so the answer for this question was D. The next question is about space missions. Time and again you keep on getting these questions about space missions. For some of you, you know, the distinction is going to come out clearer. We identify that this has become an area of my strength, or you identify that this has become an area of my weakness. Some people will say, okay, ma'am, neutral. Either way, what has to happen is that you have to have a very specific list of what space missions that you're preparing. On basis of that, you have to figure out whether or not you can do the question or not, right? Guesswork in multiple table questions is sometimes very difficult. So you have to pick your time and place. All right. First statement is Axiom 4 mission by China National Space Administration. Okay. Abhi, if you're doing this Axiom mission, right? Is it something that sounds like something China would make? The name itself does not match, right? From that knowledge itself, I don't see them matching. Plus, you should also know what this mission is for, because ISRO's involvement is there, right? So this is a collaboration between NASA, ISRO, and Hungarian Space Agency, right? NASA, ISRO, Hungary. They are doing it together. Axiom 4. Right? What are they doing it for? They're doing it for checking what happens in microgravity. So if you're coming from a math science background, you'll know axioms and postulates and hypotheses, right? So axiomatic means it is something that I want to check, right? Something that I'm going to check. So what they're trying to check is that if I send things into microgravity, how will they get affected? So there'll be some axioms that they're trying to prove, and that's why it is called in that way. Again, mugging up things' names is easier if you have a reason, if you have a logic, if you have a pathway of reaching that name. So axiom is trying to prove something, and we're trying to prove our hypotheses, our axioms of what is going to happen in microgravity. The things that are critical here to remember is that ISRO is involved, Hungarian Space Agency and NASA is involved. More importantly, we are also sending an Indian astronaut to the space station, right? So that has to be kept in mind. There are 7 experiments that are going to be there in the mission. It will include things about microalgae growth, muscle regeneration, and other things also. How will plants sprout in microgravity? So when you study germination, plants will go against the top part of the plant, will go against gravity, and roots will go towards gravity, right? So if you're doing it in microgravity, how will it get affected? What does human and computer interaction work like in space? What is seed viability, plant sprouting? All these things are going to be checked in this mission. So this portion is wrong. The rest is correct. But anyway, the entire thing has to match. So one option is wrong here. So correctly matched में से Abhi to we can't do anything. Only 3 can be eliminated. Then EarthCare satellite mission. EarthCare satellite mission, again, ek to English sounding name. ESA has this English, very simple, straightforward names. So that is something that we can see. What is it? EarthCare, understanding the role of clouds and aerosols. Again, C for cloud, A for aerosols. So you should be able to learn care, cloud, aerosol, right? And radiation in the Earth's atmosphere. So that's why it is named in that way. Okay? So how will we learn this? CARE, cloud, aerosol, radiation. है ना? So it should help you remember. And E for ESA yaad kar lo then, right? So then the entire thing is sorted. All right. So 2 is correctly matched, and I've told you how to mug it up also. Then the third row is Shenzhou 19 mission, launched by, now see, Shenzhou 19, you would know, this is not Japan, this is China. Okay? And why it's in news is that this thing is similar in design to Russia's Soyuz. So it's not Japan, this is made by China, and the design is something which Russia has made. So that is also something that we have to know. It is called Soyuz. And what is this? This is, how do I say? It's like serialized. You know how there are movie sequels? So there are sequential sort of missions that happen, right? And this is for space flight of humans. So it is their human space flight program, right? So ours is important, other people's is also important, which means 1 and 3 are wrongly matched and only 1 is correctly matched, which gives me my answer. All right. The answer to this is going to be A, only 1. Chalo, the next question. Of course, a lot of revision is happening for this automatically by we trying to protect ourselves and our loved ones. With reference to the defense technology in India, consider the following missiles. Agni 1 Prahar BMO4 Nirbhay Agni Prime. How many of the above are examples of short-range ballistic missiles in India? Whenever you get a question like this, if you remember it well, it is well worth it that you draw your table only. Okay? Because if you're constantly checking SABM, whatever, it is helpful if you know for it correctly. Okay? So Agni 1 is what? Short range ballistic missile. Hai na? Prahar is what? Prahar is also short range, but what type of missile is it? Surface to surface. Short range surface SSM. Where? Acha. BM04 is what? BM, you have to remember, it is ballistic. BM. Hai na? Nirbhay is what? Long range cruise missile. Agni Prime is what? Medium range ballistic missile, right? So how many of the examples are short range ballistic missiles in India? 1 and 2, right? So my answer becomes what? Wait, this thing. They've asked me short range ballistic missile. I've said BM04 is also ballistic. So 1, 2, 3 are ballistic missiles. Hai na? I told na, ballistic, BM04 ballistic. Yes. So my answer becomes only 3. Again, how do you learn these things? You have to learn it in one go. Matlab, if it is Agni 1 is a short range ballistic missile with a range of 700 km. You have to learn it that same way. If you break this information down, right? If you give it too many steps, it does become tricky. Hai na? So it is necessary that we learn these things very, very well. They represent our arsenal, which is as important as ever. Okay? So again, straightforward question, but dependent on how we're going to learn this information. Then 96 was consider the following. Whenever you get questions like this, consider the following. How many of the above services are included in the ground station as a service? Now I understand some of you will start getting irritated by these questions. Ma'am, software as a service, network as a service. I'm trying to make a list, but this thing never ends. Every time in test, there is something fresh that is being asked. What you have to identify is that it's not as if you can finish making your notes. Okay? What has to happen is, can you apply your mind in the test and can you figure out what it has to mean? That is the muscle that we're trying to exercise here. So, ground station as a service. You have to know, ek to ground station, what is it? If the station is at the ground, that means what is happening has to happen somewhere else. Itna to you have to understand. I have a ground station because either I'm flying in an aeroplane or I'm in a satellite, because that's why I need a ground station to happen, right? And as a service wala concept, this thing you've studied in multiple aspects, that as a service it can be a network, it can be what software and all that stuff is there. Okay, so I am providing that ground station as a service to someone. Okay, the linkage that has to happen is sometimes we have to question ourselves. Abhi to we are breaking these questions down into whatever subject that we are talking about, but in the exam it is all jumbled. So wahan you have to tell yourself, okay, ek to, is this a science and technology question? Yes. Fair. This you're able to understand ki as a service thing is from science. Acha. So if that is true, then what is the subtopic? Nuclear, this is not there. You know, it is either space or it is networking. Itna you're able to identify. Space may have to go towards ki if it is space, right? If it is space, who will provide this as a service thing? It has to be privatization of space. Space and space tech privatization. ठीक है कि we will make the satellite stuff, but the constant support wala thing we can give it to some company as a take as a tender, right? So that linkage has to happen during the exam. If you try to do it from the networking point of view, let's do that also. If you're assuming that it is going to be something from IT, so what sort of IT will require a ground service? At most something like Starlink, which is also going to be what? Going into the realm of space tech. है ना? So this is moving towards space. That decision we have to make that, okay, this question is coming from space tech. Okay? Once that has happened, now we check. Okay? So if I'm giving ground station as a service, will it do satellite control? Ground station is going to talk to satellite also ki either this whatever they say, it's not latitude longitude, it's XYZ coordinates. है ना? Acha. Telemetry and tracking. Tracking, you know what it is? And telemetry also, television and metry, measuring or whatever which has to happen from a distance, and tracking matlab where things are. Fair. So ground station should be able to track the satellite and give its metrics. This is what they're saying. Satellite launch vehicle. Is ground support as a service something which will provide satellite launch? No. Ground support means things have to remain at the ground. Satellite launch is what? It's a rocket, na? GSLV, PSLV is what? Is it a ground station or is it a rocket? It is a rocket. And is rocket a ground station? No. Do you see? Even though my heart will say ki okay, maybe ho sakta hai, right? My heart might tell me ki maybe we can launch satellites also. But I have to verify it, which is why I always say you're getting an answer, you ask yourself why. If this is true, then what happens? Critical thinking in the exam. So satellite launch vehicles are going to be like GSLV, PSLV, which are what? Which are rockets, which cannot stay on the ground. It will not be a ground station based service, which is why 3 cannot be there in my options. Agreed? Next, design, development and production of satellites is not a ground service, right? It is something that has to happen in a what? Design capacity, research capacity, a production capacity. That is not something which is offered as a service. It is something which takes years and years and years of expertise. So 4 can also not be there. Space data reception. Reception matlab hello, welcome to my building. So if satellite is sending me data, if someone from the space station is trying to make contact, hello, right, please help someone, I need more food, whatever, please call my family, all those things. For that, someone has to receive that data, and that has to happen from a ground station. So 5 is also something that I will keep, which makes my answer what? Now see, some people will make mistakes here also. You've thought of everything, but ma'am, in the middle I make silly mistake. For those people, what happens is you've done all this thinking, but when you have to count and match, then you do a mistake, especially when it is question number 96 and you're in a hurry. Okay? Which is why I tell you that please write in your exam. So let's do it with me. Satellite control is correct. Telemetry tracking correct. Satellite vehicle, launch vehicle not correct. Design development not correct. Space data correct. 1, 2, 3. Only 3. Okay? So towards the end of your paper, I do want you to count and work as if you're in class 3 and you're doing everything by hand. Okay? That is something we're doing to prevent our mistakes. 96, the answer is going to be B. Then question 97. Which of the following is the primary reason for incorporating numerous small holes into the disc brakes of motorcycles? Some of you will have no idea and some of you will be completely motorcycle heads. Whoever you are, there will be a motorcycle in your neighborhood. Okay? If you could not visualize this, I urge you to go look at a motorcycle. A little bit of going insane is helpful, because then you can actually see, no matter how much I explain, it is not the same as looking at a motorcycle ka brake. Okay? But I shall still try. Motorcycle has a wheel. Okay? Usme bahar there is that black rubber wala thing. right? Uske alawa there are whatever lines and things design, right? And again, according to the bike, it will be different designs of the different wheel. Uske alawa in the braking thing, there is this round silver thing, all right? And idhar to there is that motorcycle ka part, the axle, ठीक है? So there will be this round silver thing, uske andar there will be holes like this, right? Now again, depending on what motorcycle you have, the design and whatever rangoli of this brake thing, this disc is going to be different. And you are going to look at it today. ठीक? This thing is called the disc brake. Uske andar there are holes, right? So what is a disc brake essentially? This disc is going to rotate with the wheel, right? And when it is rotating and I want the wheel to stop, there is something called a grip in that wheel. So while that thing is rotating, you would want that wheel to be gripped. So because of friction, you will make it stop. Okay? Now, if that is happening, why are we providing these holes in this thing? That is the question. To prevent direct contact between brake pad and the disc, thus avoiding wear and tear. If I am avoiding direct contact between the brake and the disc, how is this wheel supposed to stop? Pakad ki to rokenge na, I have to hold it and only then it is going to stop, that rotating disc. So that's why this cannot be the answer. Obviously, in fact, I'm trying to get more friction here. If you look at brake pads, they will have teeth, right? So those teeth are going to grip this disc pad, disc brake. Okay? Then, to prevent drag caused by, so this cannot be there, to prevent drag caused by air when the vehicle is in motion. I am talking about braking in the wheel. Okay? Wheel ke andar, that motorcycle ka wheel ke andar, there is a hole, and that is going to affect the aerodynamics of the entire bike. No, aerodynamics of the entire bike will be from that Dhum Machale bike, in which there is that plastic yellow thing in the front. You have that bike na, like this. Please excuse my drawing. So you have bike like this and the handle here, and either you have a lot of those things, right? The whole thing that looks like a boat. That is going to help the aerodynamics of the bike. One hole in the wheel is not going to affect the aerodynamics of the bike. Do we see this? So again, logically, I can say this cannot happen. One hole in the wheel cannot fix my entire aerodynamics. Okay? Then, to allow for improved airflow, facilitating the dissipation of heat generated during braking. Now, I could accept that you know nothing about bikes, but you do know about holes in things. If there is a metal something and there are holes in it, okay, will it improve airflow? If there are holes, usme se hawa to jayegi. This is something that I can understand. Holes are there, it will improve airflow. Sure. Will it affect dissipation of heat? More surface area, more heat dissipation. Air is flowing, heat is radiating. Right? So this will happen in principle. So I can put a pin in this point. That let's see if I find something else. But otherwise, this could be okay. To work as a generator that converts frictional energy generated by braking into electrical energy. This is what reminds me to revise my tests. Because there was a question that I did a few weeks ago or maybe a month ago about something called regenerative braking. Right? So if I've heard of regenerative braking, they should click that no, this thing is called something else. Right? That when the brake is applied, the energy of the motion of that wheel is reused to generate some electricity which goes back into the battery to recharge it. So that is called regenerative braking. Right? So that's why this cannot be that, which is why I come back to my answer, which is going to be C. Right? So it does apply for airflow. Again, even though you do not know this technology, you can still somewhat arrive at that answer. Right? Because one cannot happen against the principle of brakes itself. Two cannot happen because logically inconsistent. And D, I can see that I have studied something else which corresponds to this information. All right. And those of you who are biker heads, right? People who do love their bikes, they will know this for sure. Okay. Now, this means that all knowledge is useful, no matter what your hobbies may be. Then the next question is, in the context of missile launch technologies, again, very important. Which of the following statements about air breathing propulsion systems is correct? Is incorrect. Again, see, when incorrect is not highlighted, sometimes your eye may miss it, which is why whatever formatting is there in the paper, make sure that you are doing your own personal formatting. Okay? So, air breathing propulsion system, you have to ask yourself, have I studied this or not? I'm saying that when the missile is running, right? When the missile is running, it does need oxygen to burn its fuel. and it is required in a large quantity. If I'm burning a lot of fuel, a lot of oxygen is going to be necessary. It may not be available in the atmosphere at the speed that you want, right? Because see, again, normally also when you're trying to put out a fire, especially say in petrol pumps and when it's an oil fire, what is taught to you is that you don't put water, you put sand to cut off the oxygen. If someone is on fire, you wrap them in a blanket to cut off the oxygen, which means that in a combustion reaction, no matter how much fuel you have, how much oil you have, there has to be sufficient oxygen for it to burn. Okay? So if that oxygen is not provided in the speed and the quantity required, the rocket will not be able to move. So often we will give an extra oxygen ka cylinder, right? We'll give them packed oxygen to burn, right? But in the case of air breathing propulsion system, the propulsion system is such that allows the missile to breathe in the air, meaning it's able to get the oxygen from the air itself. It happens only at high speeds because the flow of oxygen is so much that it sustains that combustion reaction, right? Naturally, you also know that air is not 100% oxygen. So you do have to separate and figure out how to compress the air and what speed it has to get into. So engines based on this system, air breathing propulsion system, use ambient air, you understand, air in the atmosphere, for combustion, eliminating the need for onboard oxidizers. Oxidizers means things that have oxygens, like liquid oxygen. Absolutely correct. This is the meaning of the statement. So this is a correct statement and I'm looking for incorrect statement. You know? Next, it cannot function effectively in a vacuum. Obviously, if it has to be air breathing, air has to be there. In vacuum, there is no air. Okay? Again, these thoughts, these statements, I would want you to formulate them in your mind. Otherwise, even after knowing everything, you will get the question wrong and not know why that has happened. Then, do not require an assisted takeoff and can move spacecraft from a standstill on their own. Now think of this. If the spacecraft has to be air breathing and you are just starting the aircraft, okay? Anytime, see, you would have seen the video of rocket launch, right? It is huge, right? You can hear the noise, you can feel the energy out of it. And again, takeoff requires a lot more energy because the inertia is at play, right? At that stage, how can you have enough oxygen in the regular atmosphere to start the burning? Obviously, you have to provide more fuel, more oxygen so that you can escape the gravity, right? Escape the inertia. So this cannot be true logically, right? It has to be assisted by something else. You have to burn something else so that you reach a speed at which there is enough oxygen coming in for you to start breathing in the air, right? Acha. They do not have any rotating compressors. If this thing does not have any rotating compressors, that means it is not compressing the air. It is not keeping air compressed. It is not keeping oxygen compressed, right? So that's why if it's air propulsion, if it's air breathing, so naturally they will not require this, right? Of course, the answer has to be option C and we have to think it through because of the logic of it. Fair? And the rest of the options we can identify to be correct. Then the last question of my set is continuously operating reference station networks are often discussed in the context of what? Again, it could be a technology that you've never heard of before. But what we have to do is we have to figure out how we get to the real name. Continuously operating. They're operating constantly. It is giving reference to something. There are stations that are placed. Matlab, there will be stations that are placed in different places. It will be a network. It will be a network that is created and these things will constantly be checking what is happening, what is not happening. Fair? This thing we have to sort of articulate what is happening in the technology. Now, again, I don't know what sphere of science and tech this is coming from, right? This sort of thing could be, say, in space, it could be in networks, right? It will not be there in biotech. This much I can know. So oftentimes when you know the syllabus, you can match it. Okay, what segment is it coming from? Okay. Now let's see the options. Is it development of artificial intelligence based reasoning models? Artificial intelligence based reasoning models, ek to names I have already prepared, right? And do they need continuously operating reference stations? No, it's often additive, subtractive, that sort of name is there, right? The way that the learning is operating, right? So I'm putting a pin in this, this does not feel something that will work. Providing internet services by setting up public Wi-Fi hotspots. I have heard of public Wi-Fi hotspots a lot of times and this is not come up, right? So if it had been there, I would have been aware of it. So I'm eliminating this also. This is a thought that you do have to trust in the exam. I've not heard of it and I've studied it a lot. So naturally, this is not going to be the name. Then providing real-time positioning services. If you're checking something for real-time matlab immediate, current time, right? If that is happening and you have continuously operating, it is operating constantly, matlab real-time, continuously operating and real-time are synonyms for me, right? And positioning service will require some sort of network. Right? Yes. And if I'm trying to locate something, that triangulation is helpful. So I am inclined towards option C at this point. And then development of quantum capacities. This also does not require operating reference stations. It just requires cooling and an understanding of quantum mechanics, right? And after that, that is all design. So that will not require a network. So this I'm able to eliminate. Quantum capabilities completely I'm able to eliminate. Artificial intelligence networks, I know cannot happen because I've studied them and they don't require such networks, right? And internet services by public Wi-Fi hotspots, I've studied, they don't require such technology. So even through elimination, I can come and converge towards the answer, which is what? Real-time positioning systems. All right. So these were the questions that we had to discuss from science and tech. Of course, there's an aspect of studying, but there's also an aspect of us keeping our minds open and thinking in the exam. That was all from me today. I hope this was helpful. Thank you.
Hello everyone, welcome to last test before our actual exam, Simulator X open test. Welcome. I'll be taking up the polity and IR section. Now we are already close to our exam, and as to say that we are in our end game. Yes, so make sure that this end game is worthwhile and you know what is to be done. The focus should be on the static portion plus lot of revisions for current affairs also. It is not about the number of time you go through things, but it is more about how much you can internalize in how many iterations. It can be in 2 iteration, 1 iteration, it can be 4. See what kind of person you are, how your mind works. Let's start with the discussion for polity. We are talking about the appointment of election commissioners, the chief election commissioner and the election commissioners. We know that according to Article 324, which explicitly says that the composition of the Election Commission of India should be chief election. There should be a chief election commissioner, and we know that there has been a history of when it was a single member body, then a multi-member, then again. So there are chief election commissioner and election commissioner. So this is mandatory, should be there as a position. And about the election commissioner, it explicitly says that the number has to be fixed by the president from time to time. Yes, and there's a star mark here also, which says until there is a law passed by the Parliament. Yes, so we know that recently a law has been passed. 2023 Chief Election Commissioner and election commissioners appointment, condition of service and terms of office act of 2023. Now, interestingly, this act section 3 specifically provides the same thing. It mentions exactly the same thing, that it has to be decided by the president. It has copy pasted from the Article 324. So the composition remains same even after there is a law. So we know that the number of election commissioners are to be decided by the president even after the passage of law. All right, C would be the right answer here. Then we are talking about which of the above provisions were added by the 7th Constitutional Amendment Act of 1956. We know the history behind 7th Constitutional Amendment Act. A lot changed in the political map of India. State reorganization commission happened and it recommended something and few changes were made in the constitution itself. Let's have a look. A person can be appointed as a governor for 2 or more states. Originally, we know that under Article 153, there shall be a governor for every state. It is what it used to say. But after the 7th Constitutional Amendment, this particular addition was there that a single governor can be there for 2 or more states, and a proviso was added. Yes, a proviso to the original text was added, which provided for the original text. Yes, this is Correct. A judge of High Court, when transferred, should be getting a compensatory allowance. This was part of judicial reforms under 15th Constitutional Amendment, not 17th, not 7th Constitutional Amendment. Governor, with the consent of the Government of India, entrusts certain executive functions of the state to the Government of India. Now, originally, again, this is about delegation of function. Originally, the Constitution under Article 258 provided that the President has the power to delegate certain union functions to the state. But we realize that we have forgotten to put the reverse delegation. So we added Article 258A, in which the executive head of the state, that is the governor, can do the reverse. He can delegate some state functions to the union government, and there are a few conditions: consent, non-consent, etc. And this was also done by the 7th Constitutional Amendment. We are talking about delegation of function, of course, related. State is empowered to make special provisions for the advancement of SEBC. Now you remember, this is related to Champakam Durai Rajan case. And when the court declared in that particular case that there is the Constitution does not provide for any explicit affirmative action, and this is a violation if at all the person who is getting higher marks in an exam but still not getting the seat. So this is a violation of Article 14, etc. So for that, we included explicitly Article 15, Clause 4 by first Constitutional Amendment. So this is not 7th, but first Constitutional Amendment. 1 and 3, B would be the right answer. Yes. I hope you attempt all your questions, not just here, but in actual exam, will all the calm and compose whatever you can be, because this will determine how you are going to score. So don't be panicky. Go slow with the first reading at least. Now, events and persons, straightforward factual question. First Prime Minister who was a non-Congress government, it was, we know, Morarji Desai. So not Chaudhary Charan Singh. First President of India elected unopposed, this was Neelam Sanjeeva Reddy. Neelam Sanjeeva Reddy, explicitly provided in your standard books also. And interesting facts. PM of first coalition government to complete full term, it was under Atal Bihari Vajpayee, absolutely correct, 1992 to 2004. Yes, Shining India. Longest serving CM of state. So this used to be the case. He was, Jyoti Basu was the CM from of West Bengal from CPIM from 1977 to 2000. But now things have changed. Then at first we have Pawan Kumar of Sikkim. He has been, I think, from 1994 till 2019, he has been there. So he has crossed his 23 term, and now we have a first number as 24 years. Now, again, similarly, Naveen Patnaik now is at second, again, 24-year-old. 24 years of term totally. So we have 1 and 3, only 2. B would be the right answer. Yes, not 2. Only 1 is there, not 1. So A would be the right answer here. Yes. Then we are talking about provisions and sources, standard questions. Again, if you are not able to recollect these things, make it possible that you revise it through maps. मैप से करेंगे एकदम याद हो जाएगा आपको. नॉमिनेशंस, नॉमिनेशन से याद रखिए, N मतलब नॉर्थ, नॉर्थ मतलब आयरलैंड. मैप के सेंटर में, वर्ल्ड मैप के सेंटर में देयर विल बी आयरलैंड ओवर देयर. मेक अ शॉर्टकट. दिस इज एब्सोल्युटली इनकरेक्ट. Not Canada. Holding a joint session, absolutely correct. We have taken these from Australian Constitution. Advisory jurisdiction, Canada, not US. This is Canada. So this is incorrect. Procedure for amending South African Constitution. Okay, so B would be the right answer, 2 and 4. Then we are, yes. Then we are talking about not included in fundamental duties. So this type of questions, naturally, if you've gone through the fundamental duties, and in this particular question, if you apply logic, you'll be able to answer. Now, what will be a fundamental duty? Naturally, what is a fundamental right? It has to be in sync with that. Now, which is not a fundamental duty? Why we are quoting it? That complete the age of 6 years, that should be the fundamental, that you should be providing education to the person, to the child who has yet to complete 6 years. So it is from 0 to 6. And we know that fundamental right has been for 6 to 14 years elementary education. And this is something ambitious which the state should do. Therefore, it is a DPSP, not a fundamental right. And fundamental duty has to be realization of fundamental rights. So that should be the duty of every citizen. So this is not 6, but 6 to 14 years. So that is the reason this is incorrect. All other are provided explicitly in the Constitution. Then we are dealing with right to digital access. If you are updating current affairs, if you are keeping a tab on everything, then you will be knowing that in the Arun Jain probably versus Union of India 2025, I think within few weeks itself. So it has been declared as a fundamental right under Article 21. Yes, what is that? There should be a right to digital access and it should be in sync with the e-governance. So C is the right answer here. Then in National Security Advisor, quite a lot in news and presently what we are witnessing. Make sure that you are not distracted by what is happening on the western border specifically. Make sure that you have to be focused on what is to be revised. Yes, that is the only way you can help what is happening on the western border on one end, help yourself on the other. Yes, National Security Advisor, we know that this position is quite important and it is just below the Prime Minister in terms of when we are talking about the India's security architecture. Yes, she or he is appointed by the president. The position is appointed by the committee headed by the Prime Minister, and that is the Cabinet Committee, Appointment Committee. There is no role of president here. Acts as the ex officio chairman of NSAB. Though he is associated, but this is a government official, senior government official who heads the NSAB, senior government official. When we are talking about NSA chairing something, that is the strategic group, strategic policy group, which assists the National Security Council. He heads that, not NSAB. So this is also incorrect. Rank is almost equal to the cabinet minister. Absolutely correct. 7th in terms of table of precedence. So we have only 3. C would be the right answer here. Then we are talking about PIL. We know that this as a concept was not originally present in the Constitution. PIL, that is litigation, which is in public interest. If there is private interest associated, then there is no PIL. Yes, this is litigation by anyone, not just the person who is aggrieved or associated, but anyone, a good Samaritan, can file a PIL so that there is larger public interest secured. This was not present, as I said, in the Constitution, and it was a judicial innovation taking inspiration from the American jurisprudence in 1917 and 80s, especially Justice P.N. Bhagwati, etc. They provide for new avenues to seek justice. Not explicitly mentioned in the Constitution, correct, and we are looking for incorrect. Keep highlighting what we are looking at. It can be filed both in the Supreme Court as well as High Court, absolutely correct. It is available for both the higher judiciary. Then locus standi is not mandatory because we know that anyone, what is locus standi? The person who is aggrieved, only that person can file a case, that person can. So this is locus standi is not mandatory here. This is also correct. We already know our answer. Incorrect would be D. The courts do not have the suo motu power to initiate a PIL. This is incorrect. In the larger public interest, court can accept a PIL by itself. So this is the correct answer. D would be the right answer here. Now parliamentary committees are there, and we are talking about committee on personnel, public grievances, law and justice. Now this is one of the department related standing committee, and we know the composition is 2110 from Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha respectively. This is correct. Consists of equal numbers, not equal numbers. This is incorrect. Chairman is appointed by the chairman of Rajya Sabha. This is appointed by the, I'll confirm this particular case because generally it should be the presiding officer. When we are talking about this particular committee. So this is the chairman, or this is done by the chairman of Rajya Sabha. Again, at times turns confusing. Then committee considers matters of day-to-day administration. Again, this is an extreme step when you're dealing with day-to-day administration. You cannot interfere. This is executive and this is the committee which is associated with the legislature, the parliament. So there cannot be day-to-day administration interference. So B would be the right answer here. Yes, then we are dealing with which of the above are provided under Legal Service Authority Act of 1987. We know that it provides for Lok Adalat, which should be held periodically under the guidance of national and state Legal Service Authority, NALSA, and State's Legal Service Authority. So this is correct. Gram Nyayalaya has its own act. So not under Legal Services Act 2008 Act. Family Court Act 1984 Act, separate act. Labor courts, interestingly, were provided under Industrial Dispute Act of 1947, now have been included in the labor codes. So only one A would be the right answer here. Yes. Then we are dealing with private members bill. What is a private member bill? As simple as that, quick revision. Any bill which is introduced by the private member. Who is a private member? Any person who is not a minister, including from anyone from the ruling party. An MP from the ruling party or opposition can be a private member. And these bills till date, there have been 14 bills which have been passed, which were introduced by the private member. And the last was in 1970 when it was related to expansion of the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court in criminal cases. Yes, not introduced without prior recommendation. There is no such thing. No prior recommendation of the president is required. It is just like ordinary bill introduced by the private member. Its admissibility is ultimately decided by the presiding officer, not by the committee. Though the committee assists in formulation of the bill, how it should be introduced, neither constitutional amendment nor money bill can be introduced as a private member bill. Now this we have clarity that constitutional amendment bill definitely can be introduced as a private member bill. Any person, minister or private member, can introduce constitutional amendment bill in either house. But now confusion is here, which is one of the highest confusion in the market prevailing, that what should be the case. There are faculties, institutions claiming that there can be a private member bill a private member who can introduce a money bill also. Again, interestingly, this is the open-ended legal loophole. The constitution does not explicitly mention about that who can introduce a money bill. It only talks about that what are the powers, special powers of the Lok Sabha. It can only be introduced in the Lok Sabha, etc. If you read 3 articles together, Article 109, 110, and 117 clause 1 also, which talks about 110, that it can be introduced in Lok Sabha itself. So then you understand what all the provisions are associated with the money bill, but it does not still talks about private member or not. But generally, we know that these provisions, when we are talking about money bill, also talks about that money bill can only be introduced with the prior recommendation of the president. And it is quite natural the private member bill and the money bill is associated with the finances cannot get, generally saying broadly, cannot get the presidential recommendation, prior recommendation, because that has to be decided. This is not his discretion, decided by the Council of Ministers. So why would a Council of Minister allow a private member to introduce a money bill? Naturally, yes. So that is a legal loophole, but we'll, till the Supreme Court or let's say UPSC itself clarify, we'll stick to that. It cannot be done. So this is correct. Can be introduced. So this is incorrect. Constitutional amendment can be introduced. Then its admissibility is ultimately decided. These two are incorrect. Then fourth is bill has been passed by both houses, become a law. There has been no private member bill for last 50 years. Last was 1970. So it has been almost 55 years. Yes. So this is correct. So we have C as our right answer. Then we are talking about cooperative societies. We know that cooperative societies were not part of the original constitution added by the 97th Constitutional Amendment. 97th Constitutional Amendment of 2011. And it introduced Part 9B. And recently, this particular part, whenever it was associated with cooperative society was declared unconstitutional. Rather, it only now deals with the multi-state cooperative societies. The reason being, this amendment was not passed with state ratification. We know that there are three types of amendment: Article 368, simple majority, which is not considered as an amendment, and special majority, plus special majority and state ratification. So this was not done, and cooperative society is a state subject, so this was needed. Therefore, this was declared unconstitutional and only applicable in case of multi-state cooperative societies, which is a union subject. All right, so what changes this particular? Okay, we are talking about explicit mention of these terms. Fundamental rights explicitly present under Article 19. Yes, freedom to form associations, union or cooperative societies. DPSPs, yes, Article 43B, that we should be promoting cooperative society. Fundamental duties, there is no explicit mention. Part 9B, yes, deals with cooperative society. State list, yes, that is the reason that this was declared only applicable in case of multi-state cooperative society. So we have, okay, concurrent list, there is no mention of cooperative society. Again, we have 1, 2 and 4, 5. A would be the right answer here. Then we are dealing with Jan Vishwas, amendment of provisions. Now, to win the Vishwas of the Jan, now there were certain provisions which were declared or which were in different acts were criminalized. That means there were cases of imprisonment in certain cases which should not be there. For example, if you provide personal access to some information under IT Act, then you were vulnerable to being imprisoned for certain time. For example, if you are tampering with the post under India Post Office Act, then again you were vulnerable to be imprisoned. So for this, a decriminalization was done in multiple laws. Yes, certain minor offenses, penalties proportional to severity of the offense. So that was the real objective. D would be the right answer. Then Prime Minister Internship Scheme. Now this was launched in this year's budget itself by Ministry of Commerce, which provides that around 1 crore individuals should be provided internship, paid internship for 12 months. Yes, to 1 crore individuals in some leading companies. And this is by Ministry of Commerce, not by Ministry of Skill Development. And premier institutions are not eligible. That is an exception. And there are eligibility criteria related to a particular people from a different, from a economic section that should be eligible for this. So 1 and 4, B would be the right answer here. Yes, I hope you are keeping the track. Then we are dealing with PVTGs. Now, original constitution does not provide about the PVTGs, nor even mention the term PVTGs. This idea was suggested, boys, that within tribal groups, there are certain groups. Within tribal groups, there are certain groups which need special attention. Those should be referred to as PVTGs. So, Debar Commission of 1960 suggested it, and we introduced this idea in 1973. So, specifically mentioned, no. Highest number, this is Andhra Pradesh is important. Andhra Pradesh along with Telangana forms the second, but originally it is Odisha, which has near about 13 PVTGs. So this is again incorrect. Andaman and Nicobar is the only UT that is home to PVTGs. Absolutely correct. It has various tribes including Champaigns, etc. Yes, Ongles. So this is correct. PM Janman scheme is aimed at targeted comprehensive development. Again, not a recent current affair. It is a current affair of 2023. Ministry of Tribals launched this particular scheme, which provided for development of PVTGs. Yes, look for the full form also. I think that is Maha Abhiyan Janjati Adivasi Nyay Maha Abhiyan. Yes, so this is 3 and 4. D would be the right answer. Then we are talking about Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha, and we are looking at equal powers. Which of the above provide for equal powers between Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha? Yes, let's have a look at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Amendment of the Constitution, absolutely equal powers are there. It can be introduced in either house and they have equal powers. Money bill, we know that. Again, those 3 articles provide explicit powers to the Lok Sabha. Impeachment of the President of India. Now, when we are talking about impeachment, this again is equal in terms of Article 61, violation of the Constitution. So this is also correct. Authorizing Parliament to make laws in matters enumerated in the state list, that can be done by the Rajya Sabha under Article 249, special powers of Rajya Sabha. So this is not equal powers. All India services, again Article 312. This is also not equal powers. So we have only 2 cases of equal powers. A would be the right answer, 1 and 3. Then we are talking about Article 32, 1 and 2. Just a second. It empowers individual to directly approach Supreme Court and High Court in case of violation of rights under Part 3. Now, Article 32 provides certain writs to the Supreme Court itself. That is the reason it has been provided under fundamental right. When we are talking about approaching High Court, we have a different article, that is Article 226. So this is not Article 32. This is incorrect. Right to constitutional remedies cannot be suspended under any circumstances. This is absolutely incorrect. Constitution itself provides for suspension of Article 32 except for 20 and 21. Under Article 359, a lot of mentioning of articles so that it is ingrained. So D would be the right answer here. Yes. Then we are talking about Constitution. How many of the above courts are considered as court of record? What is a court of record? Whatever judgment is passed by a particular court, that is a court of record. Its judgment can be used as an evidence and should be followed by the inferior courts. That is court of record. And explicitly under Article 129, the Supreme Court has been declared as the court of record. And under this, it also has the power to punish for its contempt. And under Article 215, it is the same power has been given to high courts also. But that power is not for district courts. 1 and 2, B would be the right answer here. Yes. Then we are talking about vice president, and 4 statements are there. Elected by an electoral college of only elected members. When we are talking about only elected members, this is only is for president. For vice president, there is no such mention. That is open to all. Eligible must be a person who is eligible to be a member of Rajya Sabha, explicitly provided in the Constitution, can act as the president. We know that the president in India act as a president. He does not become the president. Unlike in US, the president is, the vacancy is there in the office of the president because of death, resignation. The vice president becomes the president. So maximum period has been provided within which the election for the president has been, which has to be completed in 6 months. So this is also correct. All disputes regarding election of vice president are decided by the, explicitly given under Article 71, that all disputes regarding president and vice president election has to be dealt by the Supreme Court, not election commission. So this is it. Incorrect. We have 1, 2 and not 1, 2 and 3 is correct. B would be the right answer. Then we are talking about special address of the president. Article 87 provides for special address of the president to the joint sitting of the both houses of parliament. Now, originally it provided that every session, before every session, president must conduct this special address, give this special address to the both houses. But it realized that it is an overdue for the president, which is maybe in inverted commas at times a rubber stamp, and there is no need for every session. There are 3 sessions usually according to the convention. So we decided by the first constitutional amendment itself that it should be done twice. One is before or after every general election. The first session should be delivered this special address, then there is motion of thanks, etc. And this should be by first session of every year. We know that before budget session every year, we have this special address, and then there is motion of thanks. So this is the present stance. First session after each general election, absolutely correct. First session of every year, absolutely correct. Ordinary bill, no use. Grave emergency, no use. Republic Day, no use. So we have 1 and 2. There are addresses by President on Republic Day, but not to the houses. So we have A as the right answer. Then we are talking about MPs and expunsion of certain remarks by MPs. Yes, we know that this term has not been mentioned in the Constitution. Expansion of remarks is when there are certain unparliamentary words which are decided again by the rules. There is a rule book which contain of certain number of words, and that can be added also, updated also. So if these words are used in the conversation, in address, then these are expunged by the presiding officer. This is his or her discretion. Remarks rest with the presiding officer. Yes. Expunge remarks explicitly provided, not explicitly provided. It is under the rules of the houses in both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. Completely removed from the records, and media cannot report on these. Yes. So we have 1 and 3. C would be the right answer here. Then moving on to the international relation portion. Regarding international relation, this particular set of questions are a little factual also. Again, quite near to what has been the trend in UPSC. Talking about NATO, we know that NATO is a organization set up on the principle of collective security. The Western European nations came together that we should be aligning with the organization, aligning as an organization for the collective security, because there is a debate or a protection of the capitalism, so to say, and there is a fear of communism coming in. So US along with several Western countries, West European countries, formed the NATO, and presently there are 32 NATO nations. Yes, recently Sweden joined. So out of these, Belarus is not a NATO country. Ukraine is not a NATO country. Of course, you could eliminate this because that is the only contention of US. Israel again is not a NATO country. Just a minute. Sweden is the latest country, 32nd country. Finland was the 31st. New Macedonia was the 30th country. Yes, Turkey has been there for a while, so C would be the right answer here. Yes, specifically do all the organization through maps itself. Again, Arctic Council again, through maps. Who are the members? US, Alaska region. Yes, who are within the Arctic Circle. Then Canada is there. Then Greenland, that means Denmark is there. Then we have Iceland. Then we have Norway, Sweden, Finland, and Russia. So we have 3, 4, and 8 members. Yes. So Japan, UK, Russia is there. South Korea is not there, and USA is there. So we have only 2 members out of these 3 and 5. These are very comfortable questions which everyone should be getting correct. This might be a technical question because we are not into every nitty-gritty, every news, etc. So economic crisis causing food and fuel shortages that is happening in Cuba, and Congo is witnessing capturing by certain militia. This is also correct. Peru, we are having rise of violence, declaration of emergency has been done. All 3 are correct. C would be the right answer. Then we are talking about shift in container shipping. Now, because there has been a vulnerability and evolving situation, especially in the Persian Gulf, and Houthis in the Yemen have been striking the trade ships what are going through Suez Canal. So we are now witnessing quite a rise that we are going not through Suez Canal, but through the route of if this is Africa, then we are going for a higher or a longer route, which is costlier, but at least we are able to trade. So this is correct, and this is the right reason as well. A would be the right answer. Then we are talking about Cooperative again. Cooperative Alliance. This particular alliance was set up in 1985. And the idea was that all the national and international organizations associated with the cooperative, so that cooperative movement get a direction. That was set up in 1985 under London Conference. Yes, in England, of course. So it is not an initiative of UN ECOSOC, and sovereign nations are not part of this organization. Only organizations related to cooperatives are part of this. Then it was hosted by India in 2024. It was happening in New Delhi in 2024, and it was by IFCO. Do read about what is IFCO if you are not aware. Then 3 only would be the right answer, D. Then South China Sea has become a focal point. It not just become, it has been there for ages now. We know that there are countries which are contesting claims: Malaysia, Vietnam, Indonesia, Brunei, Philippines, etc. And there is this 9-dash line in which China is being seen as an aggressor, and it is building some artificial islands. We have Paracel Islands, Partly Islands, etc. So it is a different contest altogether. So this is a focal point of tension, and of course, territorial claims are there. So this is also correct. A would be the right answer. All this you would have studied while you were preparing for mains, right? European Union recently approved the nature restoration. Going ahead, the European Union, the European countries have been moving ahead. What we are doing presently, Europe has already done 20 years back. For example, when we are talking about, let's say, ban on nuclear energy, what Europe has, Germany, etc. have done already, we'll be doing it down the line after realization. So in 2024, they have passed this law which seeks that 20% of the restoration of land and sea in EU should be done by 2030, and 100% should be done by 2050. That is the objective. Restoration targets, absolutely correct. Ecosystem, all by 2030 is not correct. This is incorrect. So we are looking at C as the right answer. Do read about we know what are the targets and how they are going to achieve it. Lake Chad. Now again, it is a part of Africa wherein it has Niger or Nigeria and Chad. So at the confluence of these three countries is the Lake Chad region. And we have seen a lot of terrorist activities and conflict in recent years there. Yes. And this is because, again, it is known that when the climate is good, when the weather is good, it is the temperament of the individual is better. And when the climate is good, the basic facilities are good. When climate change happens, it leads to various extreme environments, and ultimately the people chooses to go for extreme measures for their existence, and this is what is happening in Africa. So this is also correct. A would be the right answer. So that is it from Polity and IR section. I hope you do well in your exam. Keep grinding. All the best.
Hello everyone. So I welcome you all in this discussion of simulator. So we'll be taking the economy section. So let us begin the discussion. Question number 31. With reference to recent announcement by United States of America, USA, regarding the imposition of reciprocal tariffs on imports from various countries, consider the following statements. Statement 1, the imposition of reciprocal import tariff on various countries by USA is likely to reduce the international trade volume. Statement 2, the USA is one of the largest importer of goods in the world. Which one of the following is correct with respect to the statement given above? All right, so the recent announcement by the Trump administration in the USA, where they have increased the tariff on the imports to the USA to a very higher level. That is what we are calling as reciprocal tariffs. So earlier, the goods which were imported were having import tariff of around 2-3%, but it has been increased substantially, all right, by the Trump administration. That is what the idea of reciprocal tariffs. So what it will lead to, since USA is one of the largest importer of goods in the world, so what it will lead to, the rise in or increase in reciprocal tariffs on the imports, it will lead to less and less imports by the USA from the various countries. So statement 1, the imposition of reciprocal import tariff on various countries by USA is likely to reduce the international trade volume. Yes, it will reduce the international trade volume. Why? Because now the different countries will be importing less to one of the largest goods importer of the world. All right, that is what the idea. So it will reduce the international trade volume. Second statement, USA is one of the largest importer of goods in the world. So this statement is also correct. This statement is also correct. Since USA, all right, which is the largest importer of goods in the world, and due to reciprocal tariffs, there will be a reduction in imports to the USA, which will ultimately leads to a reduction in international trade volume. All right. So both the statements are correct, and the statement 1 is explained by statement 2. All right, is explained by 2. Is likely to reduce the international trade volume. Why? Because USA is one of the largest importer of the goods in the world. So what is the correct statement here? Statement A. Both statement 1 and statement 2 are correct, and statement 2 explains the statement 1. Next question, in context of economy, consider the following statement regarding the free goods. All right. So what is the meaning of free goods? What is the meaning of free goods? So basically they are gifts of nature. All right. They are not, they are the natural things which are present on the earth. They are not made by, or they are not manufactured by the man-made through. All right. So these are usually the gift of nature. Their availability is huge, or they are available in abundance, unlimited availability. All right, unlimited availability is there. All right, and people may utilize it without paying anything, air, sunlight, all right, etc. So that is the idea. That is the idea. So also they are, you can say, non-rivalrous. The two important features of free goods also, which are there with regard to, you can say, public goods. All right. So non-rivalrous in nature. And non-excludable. All right. So these are some of the important characteristics of free goods. Now let us see. Street lights are example of free goods. So street lights are not example of free goods. All right, because they are, street lights are made via man-made process. All right, they are produced via man-made process. But free goods, what we are saying, they are gifts of nature. So street light are example of free goods. This is not correct. Street lights are example of public good. Yes. All right, that is the correct statement. Street lights are example of public goods here. Second, street lights are provided by the government to the public without charging any user fee. So this is a correct statement. Usually government do not charge any fee, any money to use the street light. So this is a correct statement here. All right. So what is the correct option here? Statement 1 is incorrect and statement 2 is correct. All right. Statement 2 is correct. So that is there. So option D is the correct answer here. Question 33. Consider the following statement. Other things remaining unchanged. Bond prices in India are likely to increase. All right. So bonds are debt instruments which are used to raise loans. All right. अगर आप bonds की बात करेंगे तो bonds. All right. So usually 2-3 parameters are there. So face value, time or maturity, and we say that final value, final maturity value. All right, final maturity value. If some bond is being issued at, let us say, 100 rupees, all right, face value is 100 rupees, it is issued at 100 rupees, maturity is 1 year, let us say, and final maturity value, if somebody is holding that bond and after 1 year, the final maturity for that bond is 110. So when we're talking about bond yield here, what we say? We say that face value or final maturity value, that is 110, minus the face value, and sometimes it is also called as bond price, the price at which it is transacted in the market. All right. So minus 100 divided by face value, that is 100 into 100. So that is 10%. So bond yield is 10%. So one of the important characteristics is that bond price is inversely proportional to bond yield. When the bond price will increase, bond yield will decrease. When the bond price will reduce, bond yield or return on the bond, this is what is called as return on the bond. If you are holding the bond for 1 year, you will get the 10% return on the bond. All right, so they are talking about bond prices are likely to increase. So let us see. There is a significant increase in India's sovereign credit rating. All right. So sovereign credit rating or the credit rating agencies have increased the credit rating or sovereign rating of government bonds. All right, they have increased the, that is what the meaning, they have increased the credit rating, credit worthiness of government bond has increased. So what it will lead to? It will lead to more and more demand for the government bond. All right, so what it will lead to? It will lead to increase in demand for Indian government bond. All right, that will lead to, and what it will lead to, more and more people are now wanting to buy the Indian government bond. So what it will lead to? It will lead to increase in bond prices. More demand, bond price will increase. So first statement is correct. First statement is correct, that if there is significant increase of India's sovereign credit rating, then it is likely to increase the bond prices. Second, the Reserve Bank of India increases the policy interest rate. All right, policy interest rate, meaning that RBI is following contractionary monetary policy. All right, so policy interest rate, let us say a repo rate is increased. Repo rate is increased. What it will lead to? It means that cost of credit will increase. All right, so cost of credit will increase. What it will lead to? Less and less liquidity in the economy. All right, that is what the contractionary monetary, less and less liquidity in the economy. So liquidity in economy will reduce. What it will lead to? It will lead to less and less demand for the bonds because there is less liquidity in the economy. So less and less demand for the bond. So demand for, government securities will reduce. So what it will lead to? It will lead to decrease in bond prices because there is no demand, right? So if it is happening, bond prices will reduce. So it will not lead to increase in bond prices. Next, there is a significant increase in inflation in the Indian economy. All right, there is significant increase in inflation in the Indian economy. So one of the way of understanding is, if inflation is increasing, So RBI may adopt contractionary monetary policy and it may increase the policy repo rate or policy rate. So repo rate will be increased, cost of credit will be increased, loans will become costlier. So overall liquidity in the economy will reduce and it will lead to less demand for government securities and bond prices will reduce. All right. So this is one way of understanding. Another way of understanding is via through bond yield. For example, let us suppose if earlier inflation was 5%, all right, inflation was 5%. So I was happy with the bond yield of, let us say, 7%. I'm happy that I'm getting 2% extra than the inflation. Now, if inflation increased to 6%, now if inflation increased to 6%, so what I would say? I would say that I would require more bond yield, more return on the bond. Maybe let us say 8%. So with increase in inflation, bond yield increases because now you will be demanding, the investors in the bonds, all right, will demand more return on the bond. Only then I will invest. All right. So that is why bond yield will increase. If bond yield will increase, then bond price will reduce. So both the ways you can apply the things. All right. So it will lead to decrease in the bond prices. Fourth, the RBI of India injects liquidity in the market through open market operation. So open market operation by the RBI is outright sale or purchase of government securities. Outright sale and purchase of government securities. So what is happening here? The RBI is injecting liquidity. All right. RBI is purchasing the government bond, all right, from the economy. So RBI is purchasing the government bond and releasing the liquidity or releasing the money in the economy. So overall liquidity in the economy is increasing. So if overall liquidity increases, what will happen? Liquidity in the economy is increasing, means there will be more demand. There will be more demand for government securities, meaning that bond prices of government securities will increase. So it will also lead to increase in bond prices. All right. So which of the statements are correct? So what we can say? 1 and 4 only. So option B. Option B. All right. Next, India is almost completely dependent on imports for critical minerals like lithium, cobalt, and nickel. Statement 2. At present, there are no officially confirmed reserves of lithium, cobalt, and nickel within India. Statement 3. India currently lacks a dedicated national policy or institutional framework to support the domestic exploration and production of critical minerals. Which of the following is correct with respect to the above statement? So critical minerals are minerals which have been identified by the government that they are very crucial for the development of the economy. All right. That is what the idea of critical minerals. All right. So India is almost completely dependent on imports. So this statement is correct. All right. This statement is correct. When you're talking about the critical minerals, India is at present completely dependent on 100% import of these critical minerals, be it nickel, cobalt, rare earth metals. Usually it is being 100% imported by the India. So India is completely dependent on imports for the critical minerals. So this statement is correct. Second, at present there are no officially confirmed reserves of lithium, cobalt and nickel within India. So government has officially confirmed that some of the lithium reserves are being found in Jammu and Kashmir, Karnataka, etc. All right. So this statement is not correct. So officially confirmation has been made that we have found the lithium reserves in Jammu and Kashmir. Statement third, India currently lacks a dedicated national policy or institutional framework to support the domestic exploration and production of critical minerals. So ऐसा भी नहीं है. Very recently in 2025, all right. So critical, all right, minerals mission, national critical mineral missions have been launched in 2025. Also, for the first time, India has come out with the document of, you know, around 30 critical minerals for the country. All right. So that document India has come out in 2023. All right. So ऐसा नहीं है कि there is no dedicated national policy or institutional framework. All right. So this statement is not correct. So what we are having? So option D, neither statement 2 nor statement 3 is correct. All right. Only statement 1 is correct. With reference to modernization of command area development and water management, that is MCADWM scheme, consider the following statements. It has been launched as a sub-scheme under the Jal Jeevan mission. Right? So this is a sub-scheme which is part of Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana. It is related with irrigation. All right, irrigation management. So modernization of command area development and water management is a sub scheme under the Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana. It is not under the Jal Jeevan mission, which is for functional tap water to each household in the rural areas. All right. So ये नहीं है. To improve upon the water accounting and water management, the scheme envisages the use of modern advanced technologies like Internet of Things. So this is a correct statement when you're talking about this scheme. All right, it is envisaging that we will use for water accounting and water management के लिए, better accounting के लिए we will use the technologies such as Internet of Things. Third, the scheme mandates the adoption of micro irrigation technologies like drip and sprinklers in all command areas. So yes, they say that in order to improve the water use efficiency in the irrigation, there has to be increased focus on micro irrigation. ये बात तो करता है, but it is not that it is mandating for all command areas. So ऐसा नहीं है. It is just a thing that we need to do. All right, that is what the idea. So because of that, this statement is also not correct. It is not that it is mandating for use of drip irrigation, sprinkler irrigation in all the command areas. All right. So which of the statement given above is are correct? Only two. B only. Next, with reference to Pradhan Mantri Poshan Shakti Nirman scheme, that is PM Poshan scheme, consider the following scheme. So it has been the all right, earlier this scheme was called as midday meal scheme. All right, it is a centrally sponsored scheme, midday meal scheme. All right. So Pradhan Mantri Poshan Shakti Nirman, it is implemented by Ministry of Women and Child Development. All right, so it is implemented by Ministry of Education. All right, so the idea is to provide hot cooked meal to the eligible students of government schools or government aided schools. All right, and eligible students are from pre-primary to class 8th student of the government school or the government aided school. Right, it is not applicable for private school or private aided school. All right. So the benefits under the scheme are extended exclusively to student enrolled in government and government aided school. So this is correct. They are not given to the students who are enrolled in private or privately aided schools. Okay. Third, both primary and upper primary school children are entitled to receive one hot cooked meal per day containing 700 calories and 20 gram of protein. So, primary and upper primary. So, nutrient requirement is different, right? So, when you talk about calories and protein, so for upper primary, it is 720 grams of protein, and for primary, it is 450 and 12 gram of protein. So this is not same. This calorie and protein requirement is not same for the primary and upper primary. It is different. So for that, it is not correct. All right. So which of the statement given above is are correct? Two only. Option B. Next, with reference to PM Vishwakarma scheme, basically scheme for artisans and handicrafts. Consider the following statement. It is a centrally sponsored scheme. It is implemented by Ministry of Commerce and Industry. The applicants for the scheme must be involved in family-based trade specified under the program. So it is a centrally sponsored scheme. No, it is a central sector scheme. All right. What is the meaning of central sector scheme? The scheme is 100% funded by the central government. What is the meaning of centrally sponsored scheme? The scheme is funded jointly by the central government and the respective state government. So PM Vishwakarma scheme is central sector scheme. It is implemented by the Ministry of Commerce and Industry. So this is not the case. It is being implemented by three ministries co-jointly. First is Ministry of MSME, Ministry of MSME, Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises. Another is Ministry of Skill, Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship, Skill Development and Entrepreneurship. And third is Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Finance. So these three ministries are co-jointly implementing the scheme. The applicants for the scheme must be involved in traditional family-based trade specified under the program. So this is correct. So overall idea is to provide institutional credit, to provide skill development to the applicants who are basically involved in traditional and family based trades which are specified under this program. All right. So what is the correct statement here? Option C only. Next, India's first deep water container transshipment port is located in. So it is located in Kerala. All right. It is located in Kerala. If you are following the newspapers, so Vinjivan port in Kerala. All right. So this was an easy question, I guess. Next, if a commercial bank is designated as agency bank by the Reserve Bank of India, then which of the following functions of that bank would be considered as the agency functions? Collection of stamp duties on behalf of the government, to transfer of government pensions to the pensioners, lending funds to other banks which are having liquidity issues, facilitating cross-border payments and currency exchange. Select the correct answer using the code given below. So, one of the primary role of RBI, or one of the primary function of the RBI, that it act as a banker to the government. All right, one of the primary role of RBI is that it act as a banker to the government. And in order to provide banking services to the government, which RBI does through its designated offices, plus it also involves the commercial banks, public sector banks or private banks, in providing services to the government. So in that regard, it makes a bank, or it takes the services of the banks to provide the banking services to the government. And in that regard, we are calling this banks as agency banks. So what RBI does? So RBI is acting as banker to the government. All right. So, all right, collecting revenues, collecting receipts, providing payments on behalf of the government, that is done by the RBI. So how RBI does it? So RBI does it via designated offices, via its designated offices of RBI, and through agency banks. All right. So that is what the idea. So that is what the idea of agency banks or agent banks. All right. So the RBI hires the functioning of the, or hires the commercial banks, be it private bank, be it public sector banks, to help the RBI in providing the services to the government. That is why it is acting as a banker to the government. And for that, it provides commissions to the agency banks. Now, let us see. Collection of stamp duties on behalf of the government. So yes, that is one of the functions which is done by agency banks. Transfer of government pensions to the pensioners. Yes, that is also one of the things done by agency banks. Lending funds to other banks which are having liquidity issues. Facilitating cross-border payments and currency exchanges. So these are the things which are not being done by the agency banks. All right, that is done by the public sector bank as their own regard. All right, here when the RBI is hiring any bank as an agency bank, that is acting as a providing services to the government only. All right. So 1 and 2 only. Option B. Next, in the context of activities of Reserve Bank of India, consider the following: auctioning of gold reserves of the RBI, increasing the CRR for commercial banks, buying or selling of government securities in the open market, buying or selling of dollars in the spot market, rationing of credit towards certain specific sectors. How many of the above actions of the RBI are considered as a part of open market operations? So open market operation is a quantitative monetary policy tool of the RBI. All right, quantitative monetary policy tool of the RBI, where there is what RBI does: outright purchase or sale of government securities in the open market. All right. This is what is done when you're talking about open market operation. Basically, the idea here is to influence the liquidity in the economy. If RBI wants to decrease liquidity in the economy, it will sell the government securities. And if RBI wants to increase liquidity in the economy, it will purchase the government securities through the open market operation mechanism. Right? So auctioning of gold reserves, this is not part of OMO. Increasing the cash reserve ratio for commercial banks, this is also not part of open market operation. Buying or selling of government securities in the open market, yes, this is part of this. Buying or selling of dollars in the spot market, this is also not part of open market operation. Rationing of credit towards certain specific sectors, this is also not part of open market operations. So only one, only three. Option A. In the context of Indian economy, consider the following indexes: consumer price index, wholesale price index, index of industrial production, export preparedness index. How many of the above are prepared, released by the National Statistical Office? So overall an easy question, I suppose. So consumer price index, yes, this is, I know, issued by NSO under MOSPI, Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. Wholesale price index, that is released by Office of Economic Advisor under Ministry of Commerce and Industry. So that is not released by NSO. Index of industrial production, which gives about the idea of volume of production by the industries in the country. All right, index of industrial production. So this also is released by the NSO or MOSPI, under MOSPI. And export preparedness index, this report is released by Niti Aayog. All right. So how many of the above are prepared, released by NSO? So CPI and IIP, only two. Consider the following pairs: reports and released by International Debt Report. So it is released by World Bank. All right. It is released by World Bank. The World Economic Situation and Prospect. So it is released by UNCTAD. All right. Third, Technology and Innovation Reports. Again, it is released by UNCTAD. All right. World Employment and Social Outlook. It is released by International Labour Organization. Global Risk Report. It is released by World Economic Forum. All right. World Economic Forum. So, which of the pair given above are correctly matched? So, only 4 and 5. So, only 2. A. Only 2. Next, with reference to Indian economy, consider the following transaction. A Japanese automobile company sets up a manufacturing plant in Gujarat. A UK-based company purchases 15% equity of a listed Indian tech company. And Australian electronic firms acquire land and machinery for a new factory in Tamil Nadu. An NRI working in UAE sends 10 lakh to his family in Kerala via remittance services. A Singaporean company acquires 8% equity in unlisted Indian fintech startup. So how many of the above will be included under foreign direct investment in the country or in India? So when we talk about foreign direct investment, that is FDI. So what is the criteria here? So first is listed company. If company is listed company, so the criteria is that foreign investors is acquiring greater than 10% equity. All right. So they are in listed company, they are acquiring greater than 10% equity. All right. That is the one thing. Second thing is the company in unlisted, or it is not listed on the stock exchange. Unlisted company. All right. Unlisted company. So here any investment which is made in unlisted company will be coming under the foreign direct investment. So any investment in the unlisted company made by foreign investors will be part of foreign direct investment. And what will be the part of foreign institutional investment? FIIs. All right. So here in case of listed company, all right, anything which is less than 10% equity. All right, 10%. If foreign investors is acquiring less than a 10% stake in the listed company, that will be part of FIIs. Now let us see. A Japanese automobile company sets up a manufacturing plant in Gujarat. So that is a part of foreign direct investment. A UK-based company purchases 15% equity, greater than 10%, of a listed Indian tech company. So this is a foreign part of FDI. An Australian electronic firms acquires land and machinery for a new factory in Tamil Nadu. So that is also a part of foreign direct investment, that is FDI. Yes. An NRI working in UAE sends 10 lakh to his family in Kerala via remittance services. So this is a part of remittance, money transfer only. This is not part of FDI. All right. It is not the part of FDI. All right. So it is part of money transfer, remittances. It is coming under remittances. So when you talk about the balance of payment, so remittances comes under current account, whereas FDIs comes under capital account. A Singaporean company acquires 8% equity in an unlisted Indian fintech startup. So any investment in unlisted company will be called as FDI. So it is also a part of FDI. All right. So except 4, all are the part of FDI. So answer is only 4. All right. Next, arrange the following states in increasing of their shares in India's GDP in the financial year 2023-24. Karnataka, Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, Uttar Pradesh. All right. So here the most highest is Maharashtra. Highest contribution is from Maharashtra. All right. Next is from Tamil Nadu. All right. Next is from Tamil Nadu. Next is UP. And last is Karnataka. All right. So option A. Option A. No, in terms of states increasing contribution to their India's GDP. All right. क्या शेयर है उनका? Next, with reference to money multiplier. All right. Money multiplier is M3 by M0. How much the M0 which is injected by the RBI is turning into high powered money, M3. All right. So it is the with reference to money multiplier in an economy, consider the following statement. It refers to the ratio of stock of money to the stock of high-powered money. So M3 by M0, high-powered money, all right, in an economy. So this is a correct statement. If people start holding more currency in hand and less in deposits with bank, the money multiplier tends to increase. So few things which you need to remember or which you need to understand is, first thing is, any activity which increases the loanable funds with the bank, which increases the loaning activity of the bank, that will increase the money multiplier. All right, that will increase the money multiplier. All right, so loaning capacity of the bank is increasing, means that more and more credit formation in the economy, means more and more M3 in the economy, means money multiplier is increasing. Money multiplier is increasing. So always remember that any activity which increases the loanable funds with the bank, all right, any activity, that will lead to increase in money multiplier. All right, so if people start holding more currency in hand and less in deposits, so अगर less and less deposits हो जा रहा है, that will lead to reduction in loanable funds with the bank, and that will lead to reduction in money multiplier. So money multiplier will decrease. An increase in interest rate generally leads to a rise in money multiplier. All right. So this is also not the case. Why? Because interest rate increase ho jayega, people will take less and less loans. All right, when interest rate will be increasing, people will be taking less and less loans. All right, so credit formation in the economy will be lessening, will be reducing. So money multiplier will be reduced. All right, so less and less loan is being disbursed by the banks. Why? Because interest rate has risen. So M3 will reduce. So that is why M0 money multiplier will reduce. All right. So which of the statement given above is are correct? Only one only. Next, consider the following statement in relations to fair and remunerative prices for sugarcane in India. All right. It is the minimum price mandated by the government that sugar mills are required to pay farmers for their produce. So this is a correct statement. In case of fair and remunerative prices, which is for the sugar cane, what is the process? That it is the, once the FRP is decided by the government, so it is the minimum price which is mandated by the government, which the sugar mills have to give to the sugar cane farmers. All right, that is what the idea. It includes a provision for a premium to be paid for higher sugar recovery rate, but a minimum FRP must still be paid even if the recovery rate falls below a threshold. So this is also a correct statement. All right, so if the sugarcane holds more and more potential for sugar recovery, so FRP needs to be increased. All right, एक premium देना होगा फिर sugarcane mills वालों को, all right, to the sugarcane farmers, if there is high potential of sugar recovery from the sugar canes. All right, but minimum price तो है FRP. Even if आप minimum level of sugar नहीं भी निकाल पा रहे हो, if you are procuring the sugar canes from the farmers, then the minimum price which you need to pay is FRP. But if the sugar cane provided has the higher potential of recovering more sugar from the sugar cane, so you have the sugar mills owners, all right, need to pay premium over FRP. So this is also a correct statement. Unlike the MSP, the payment of FRP to farmers is mandatory under the law. So this is also a correct statement, that once you buy the sugar cane, so within 14 days you have to make payments to the sugar cane farmers. So it is mandatory. So यहाँ पे ये है, which is not the case under minimum support price. So which of the statement given above are correct? So all the statements. So answer is D, 1, 2, 3. In context of finances of corporate firm, which of the following statement best explains the debt service coverage ratio? It indicates the proportion of total expenditure of a company that is fulfilled by debt. It is the measure of company's ability to convert its production into cash or income. It is the ability of a company to repay its debt obligation primarily by selling its asset. It measures the ability of a company to repay all its debts obligation under the operating cash flow. So when you are, so once you are taking a loan, debt, all right, so you have to service the loan. Servicing of the loan means you have to regularly pay the EMI. So you have taken the loan, and in order to pay back the loan, you have to regularly pay the equated monthly installment or EMI of the loan. All right. So that is what is called as servicing the loan. So when you're talking about debt servicing coverage ratio, so what it means that your ability or ability of a company to repay all its debt obligation using the current operating cash flow. All right, आपका जो cash flow चल रहा है, whether using that you are able to repay the entire loan or entire debt which you have taken. So that is what the idea of debt service coverage ratio. All right. So correct option here is D. All right.
Hello everyone, I hope you're all doing well. And today we are here to discuss Simulator 10. Yes, the final simulator in the series right before the preliminary examination. And I really hope that you have been able to circumvent through different topics, and especially the ones which are very, very topical from the perspective of the examination. However, in case you are still struggling with certain themes which are still very relevant from the perspective of examination, so it is very important, of paramount importance, that you are doing reruns of those themes over and over again, so that whenever there is a question, whenever there are options right in front of you, so you are able to strike the right option and you are able to eliminate the wrong options within your own own comfort zone, right? So yes, today we are now we are about to discuss art and culture along with history. So let us just kind of have a relook at the Simulator 10 and the ways in which it is very much in sync with examination, with the demands of the examination. Certainly, the questions are very, very basic in nature in Simulator 10, as we are only verging closer and closer every day towards prelims. But it becomes very important for us to understand that it is very, very vital that you are making sure, you are ensuring, as far as ancient and medieval Indian history is concerned, or for that matter modern Indian history is concerned, or for that matter even more importantly Indian art and culture is concerned, so you have to ensure that you are looking through the PYQs and you are assimilating the options that are given there. So it is only in this direction that one is able to navigate, or for that matter steer really well through this particular entire domain of history and art and culture. Okay, let us just begin our discussion with regard to Simulator 10. So let us just see, the first section that we are going to deal here is Indian art and culture. So let us just see, certainly not a very difficult one, the very first question. So which of the following work is a work attributed to Mahakavi Magh, right? So poet Magh. So yes, Magh, certainly a certain kind of a name, a very popular name in early Indian Sanskrit literature. Yes. So what did he really write? Let us just see. ठीक है, हम options देख लेंगे. But yes, he wrote Shishupal Vadam. But why do I want to focus on Magh for now? For a very simple reason, because this has been a name which has been mentioned in one of the PYQs of UPSC. That actually means that we have to have a certain knowledge about Magh. Yes. So clearly, Magh के बारे में हम क्या जानते हैं? What do we know? So he existed somewhere around 7th century CE. Okay, he existed somewhere around 7th century CE. And in the regions of Gujarat, yes, in the regions of Gujarat. So certainly, he worked in these regions of Gujarat. And दूसरी चीज क्या है? That he served, his family was associated with the ruler Varmalata, right? Yes. So it is very important that we are able to kind of have a certain hold on these names. थोड़ा सा इसलिए जरूरी हो जाता है because clearly now it is not just about elimination, but rather it is about a certain comprehensive overarching knowledge that an aspirant is expected to have, and especially with regard to the names that have already been asked in the PYQs, right? So yes. So let us just see Magh के अलावा हम किस किस को जानते हैं. So Kirat Arjuniam, certainly it is not the right option. It is Shishupal Vadam. So Shishupal Vadam Magh ने लिखा है. And Kirat Arjuniam, certainly not. So Kirat Arjuniam was actually written by Bharvi. It was written by Bharvi. And even if we are speaking about Bharvi, so Bharvi's name actually becomes very important for a very simple reason that again Bharvi was a poet who was actually associated with the Pallavas. इसी साल mains में question Pallavas पे है. So there is, there is only so much that we can really emphasize upon Bharvi, because clearly अगर एक बार mains में question आ गया, so there is a very very high possibility that you have to ensure that you know something about Bharvi, or for that matter, more importantly, about the Pallavas, right? So yes, Bharvi is very important here. And फिर देखते हैं हम नैषधीय चरितम. So yes, it was written by Sri Harsh. It was written by Sri Harsh, right? So Sri Harsh was another very important poet, right? And also a philosopher. Sri Harsh किनके कोर्ट में थे? थोड़ा सा पता होना चाहिए, because clearly these are very important names. And honestly, to be very honest, there are only 12 to 15 names which are very, very topical. They have a very high potential in almost all the exams that are conducted in India, especially if one is talking about ancient Indian history, or for that matter, Sanskrit literature. So clearly, Sri Harsh is again very important. So he was serving in the court of the Gahadwalas. Okay, so he was associated with the Gahadwalas, right? So clearly, it is very important that you should know about it. But Sri Harsh is not Harshvardhan. It is not Harshvardhan. Harshvardhan was a different ruler altogether. From which dynasty? From the Pushyabhutis, who is associated with Ratnavali, or for that matter, different other texts, right? So clearly, it is very important that you do not really get yourselves confused with Harshvardhan. And Swapnavasav Dattam, certainly Bhas. Right? Yes. यहाँ पे अगर हम देखें, so certainly there is a very strong connection. There is a very strong connection between Bharvi and Magh. Why do I say that? Because clearly it is important to understand that the linguistic ingenuity, if you have never really studied about Magh, if you have never really read Magh, so once in a lifetime you should try and read Magh, at least some translated version of him. So he writes the story about Shishupal Vadam, when Krishna actually goes to Hastinapur to be able to take part in the coronation of Yudhishthir, and it is only then that Indraprasth actually, right? He goes to Indraprasth, and it is only then that Shishupal, he slays Shishupal. So it is that story. Pura 20 sargon mein ye bati hui hai kahani. It's a beautiful story. And certainly the linguistic ingenuity of Magh. So it incorporates three things. It incorporates what? The metaphor of Kalidas, Upma of Kalidas, right? And similarly, padilalitya, or for that matter, tongue twisters, wordplay of Dandin, right? Who wrote what? Dashkumara Charitam. And then the third major important aspect that he incorporates is the depth of meaning of Bharvi. Bharvi ka jo arth gaurav hai. So it is called arth gaurav in in literary manner. So yes, तो इसलिए कहा जाता है that उपमा कालिदासस्य भारवेर अर्थ गौरवम Dandin Padilalitya Maghe Santi Trayaguna, which means what? That Mag actually imbibes all the three qualities of these phenomenal writers. Okay, so certainly a very, very good question. Basic, yes, but we should also be able to circumvent around the entire depth of the question, right? So yes, with reference to India, consider the following. Yes, so let us just see. It is manuscripts of Bhagavad Gita, Ramcharitmanas, Bharat Muni's Natya Shastra, Panchtantra, and Rig Vedic manuscripts. So, yahan pe if we look at it, so it is very important to understand that yes, which of these were added in UNESCO's Memory of the World Registration, World Register in the year 2025, right? So let us just see. So clearly, यहाँ पे it is manuscripts of Bhagavad Gita. Yes, certainly. So Bhagavad Gita, a very, very important text, which was actually which was composed as a part of Mahabharat. Yes. रामचरितमानस को इन्होंने पहले incorporate किया था, right? So this is because clearly they are asking about 2025. So it is a rather a very recent phenomenon. Bharat Muni's Natya Shastra, yes. Panchtantra के अगर हम बारे में बात करें, so again no. So it was also incorporated before. And then Rig Vedic manuscripts, again, not really. So यहाँ पे if you look at it, so UNESCO's Memory of the World Register, so in roughly around 1992, yes, it was instituted. And यहाँ पे अगर हम देखें तो एशिया पैसिफिक में आता है हमारा जो रीजन है. सो क्लियरली एशिया पैसिफिक की जो मैन्यूस्क्रिप्ट्स हैं उनमें ये लोग हमें कैटेगराइज इन्होंने कर रखा है इस एजेंसी ने. सो दिस इज हाउ यू आर सपोज्ड टू काइंड ऑफ गो अबाउट इट. सो इट इज 1 and 3, but let us just also see some major important aspects of this particular question here. So manuscripts of Bhagavad Gita, so yes, Mahabharat, it is associated with Mahabharat, but what is the time period of the composition? I'm not talking about the time period of the culture of Mahabharat. No, that is a whole different question altogether. Very well suited for students who are studying solely history optional subject, but no. For GS, it is very important that we should know the time period for the composition, for the compilation of Mahabharat. So it is roughly, agar hum dekhen, so different scholars like P.V. Kane and these scholars, they have tried to suggest what? That it is around circa about 400 BCE to 400 CE. Matlab, during the time of Guptas, it was verging towards the culmination. It was verging towards the culmination during the Gupta period. So yes, so Mahabharat. So similarly, Bhagavad cult, it was also rising during Gupta period. So yes, and then you have Ramcharitmanas. So Ramcharitmanas, of course, it was written by Tulsidas. It was written by Tulsidas. And यहाँ पे if you look at it, so Tulsi wrote Ramcharitmanas in which language? He wrote it in Awadhi. Okay, he wrote it in Awadhi, a beautiful, beautiful composition, not only with respect to the religious importance that it serves, but even more importantly, the cultural importance that it has. Clearly, because if one looks at the linguistic ingenuity of Tulsidas, it is remarkable, it is commendable, the ways in which he kind of beautifully, he kind of makes the entire composition flow in a very fluid manner. So it is certainly a very, very important aspect of this composition. Yahan pe agar hum dekhe, Ramcharitmanas, it was written by Tulsidas, yes, but Tulsidas was a contemporary to which Mughal ruler? It is also very important. It is an important question. पूछ सकते हैं वो आपसे. So yes, Tulsidas was a contemporary to Akbar. Okay, he was a contemporary to Akbar. Yes, and then Vishnu Sharma's Panchtantra. Yes, Why was Panchtantra written? Because clearly there was this, it is the usual narrative goes something like this, that it was a certain ruler who had children, but they were not very interested in studying. They did not really want to study different subjects on kingship, on polity, on governance. So this is how the king actually ended up making them learn so much about the principles of kingship. तो उन्होंने क्या किया? He commissioned Vishnu Sharma. And what did Vishnu that Sharma he did? What did he do? So he basically incorporated a lot of characters of animals. The characters were actually animals. They were speaking to each other. So when this really happens, so it becomes a very fascinating story. We remember when we were really young and we were in kindergarten, so we would be very, very fascinated by the kind of cartoons that would be there on television, animals speaking to each other, right? So clearly it is a very important composition. यहाँ पे अगर हम देखें, so clearly इसका later हमें translation भी मिलता है कलिला व दिम्ना के नाम से, right? So कलिला व दिम्ना, yes. Bharat Muni's Natya Shastra, when was it written? It was also written roughly. I'm giving you a rough estimate. So scholars like Kapila Vatsyayan have also spoken about it. So roughly, if you look at it, 200 BC to 200 CE. Of course, the actual date, certainly, different scholars have debated about them, but फिर भी मैं ये क्यों बता रहा हूँ आपको? Because now they have started asking about they have started asking about these questions in terms of chronology, right? So that is why I would like to kind of give you one last reminder about these texts. And यहाँ पे ऋग्वेदिक manuscripts, certainly very very old. ऋग्वेदिक manuscripts का मतलब क्या है? जो टेक्स्ट कब से कब तक लिखे गए थे, जो टेक्स्ट लिखा, जो कॉर्पस था ऋग्वेद का, संहिता, so it was written from 1500 BCE to 1000 BCE, right? So yes, यहाँ पे अगर हम बात करें, if we talk about UNESCO memory of world register, so there are other entries as well. So you should know about them. And so clearly यहाँ पे if you look at it, so clearly it is 𝐻𝐸𝐿𝐴 Ramcharitmanas and Panchtantra. They were incorporated in 2024, right? Ramcharitmanas, Panchtantra, and इसके साथ एक और टेक्स्ट आता है 𝐻𝐸𝐿A𝐴। 𝐻𝐸𝐿A𝐴. Who wrote this text? It is attributed to Abhinav Gupta. Yes, it is attributed to Abhinav Gupta. But having said that, Abhinav Gupta, certainly, what is he famous for? He is popular for his philosophy on linguistics. He's closely associated with the linguistic philosophy also. And यहाँ पे if you look at it, so what did he write on linguistics? Another very important text that he wrote on linguistics, which was Dhvanyalok. Dhvanya Alok. What does it really mean? I'm telling you the meaning so that it stays in your memory, at least for some time. So what does it really mean? So there were different scholars who had different kinds of ideas about music, or for that matter about poetry. So some of them, they suggested that the soul of poetry, soul of a musical composition lies in the overarching aesthetics, ras, right? So that is why they wrote a lot on ras. But there were certain scholars who suggested that no, it is not ras, but it is sound. How does a musical composition, how does it sound? So Abhinav Gupta actually preferred that it was sound, not the overarching aesthetics. इसीलिए इन्होंने ध्वन्यालोक लिखा. यहाँ पे अगर हम देखें अभिनव गुप्त का, certainly it does not really stop there, because clearly अगर हम इसके बारे में बात करें UNESCO's Memory of World Register, तो उसमें शेवाइट मैन्यूस्क्रिप्ट्स भी आती हैं. ओके, सो देयर आर सम शेवाइट मैन्यूस्क्रिप्ट्स आल्सो दैट आर देयर. बट ऑल्सो इफ यू लुक एट इट, यहाँ पे एक चीज है जिसका कंफ्यूजन का हमेशा से वो रहता है, स्कोप बना रहता है. सो डच आर्काइव्स आर ऑल्सो देयर. ओके, डच आर्काइव्स आर ऑल्सो देयर. Dutch archives, very, very important with regard to the history of Dutch. And if you look at it, so clearly there are other sources as well. For example, there are sources that actually tell you about Scythians and all of those things. So they have also been incorporated in this particular program. Okay, so I know it actually looks it looks more like a gobbledygook. There is so much written on the board, but clearly it is very important for us that these are very basic questions. So whenever we say that, it is very important to circumvent the PYQs or something like that. So it is in this direction that you should do. You should have a comprehensive, well-rounded knowledge about it, right? So yes, let us just see. So it is yahan pe, coming back to it. So clearly it is 1 and 3, matlab only 2 is the right option here. Great. Next one with reference to Hatoria or Sataria. Anglicized way में इसको Sataria बोला जाता है, but otherwise it is Hatoria. So yes, very, very popular in Assam. Yes. So Hatoria classical dance in India, consider the following statements. It originated in the monasteries of Assam as a part of Neo-Vaishnavite movement. Yes, certainly. Under Shankar Dev, right? So yes, it originated under Shankar Dev. So Ankiyanat, a one-act play, forms the foundation of many Sataria performances. So let us just see. So clearly, Sataria is associated with Assam. Yes. So Sataria is associated with Assam. Shankar Dev, very, very important Bhakti saint, right? Neo Vaishnavite की वजह से, I don't know if you got confused because of Neo, the word Neo. Neo actually means, something which comes again in a different form altogether. So yes, of course, Vaishnavism was being revived around this period. So yes, Shankar Dev के कौन से किस तरीके की compositions के basis पे है ये? Borgeets of Shankar Dev, right? Yes. So it is very important. And when we speak about it, so Hatoria is one of the classical dances. Yes. Which agency actually designates the classical heritage to a particular dance form? So it is Sangeet Natak Academy. Sangeet Natak Academy इस चीज का accreditation करती है, right? So you should remember this. All right, Ankiyanat, a one-act play, forms the foundation of many Hatoria performances. So yes, Ankiyanat is associated with Hatoria, yes. And along with what? Along with another form which is called Bhavna, which is actually called Bhavna, right? So usually the Vaishnavite performances are the crux, are at focus. And clearly both of these statements are correct. All right, so let us just move ahead then. So yes. Which of the following languages was granted the status of a classical language by the government of India in the year 2024? So Odia, no. And Gujarati, it has still not been accredited the classical language status. Kannada, not in 2024, but it was Bengali. It was actually Bengali. So 2024 में किन languages को मिला था? It was yes, Marathi, Pali, Prakrit, Bengali, and Assamese. Okay, so these were the languages that were actually accredited the status of classical language. यहाँ पे you should understand that it is not a certain kind of a novelty that is looked for, that is sought here. Novelty in terms कि भाई वो जो है मतलब कहीं से उसने इंस्पिरेशन भी ना लियो उस लैंग्वेज ने, नहीं, not necessarily. Had that been the situation, in fact वो पूरा वही हटा दिया गया है अब, you know, that benchmark has been waived off, because clearly had that been the situation, so Prakrit would not have been there, Pali would not have been there, right? So Prakrit, so Pali, they are very, very closely related. Prakrit especially, so very closely related to Sanskrit. Marathi, very closely associated with Shorseni. So clearly, you know, so this is how one kind of goes about it, right? So yes, it is actually Bengali is the right option here. So let us just see the next one. Yes, Bengali. Great, perfect. Modern Indian history. Let us just see modern Indian history. So the kind of questions that have been there in modern Indian history, they have rather been very, very simple and plain and very direct. So there is not much that one can really do here. मतलब आपको आता है तो आपको आता है. अगर आपको नहीं आता है, so clearly, you know. So it is more like that. So yes, let us just see. So during British India, which of the following, who among the following was the first non-official member to be elected as the president speaker of the Central Legislative Assembly? So Chitranjan Das की अगर बात की जाए, so Chitranjan Das is very popular because clearly he actually fought, he defended Aurobindo Ghosh for Alipur bomb case, right? So he defended Aurobindo Ghosh for Alipur bomb case, and then G.V. Mavalankar, very important name, certainly you would have known. So the first speaker of Lok Sabha, he was the first speaker of Lok Sabha. So again, a very prominent and a very popular name, yes, among the aspirants and for the nation as well, yes. And the third one, Vittal Bhai Patel. So yes, this is actually the right option. This is the right option. So he was the one who was actually elected as the Speaker of the Central Legislative Assembly. And Satyendra Nath Sinha के बारे में अगर देखा जाए, so yes, so he was the first Indian to join Viceroy's Executive Council. He was the first Indian to join Viceroy's Executive Council. So okay, so this is how you are supposed to go about it. It is Vittal Bhai Patel. Okay, so yes, very important name again. So yes, with reference to history of modern India, which of the following statements are correct, is or are correct regarding the provisions of the Charter Act of 1853? So let us just see. So yes, it directed East India Company to grant 1 lakh rupees annually for promoting education among Indians. So clearly, this is not right, because clearly it was the Charter Act of 1813 that had this kind of a provision. It for the first time allowed Christian missionaries. So again, a very simple statement here, very direct one, to come to India and preach. It was again with regard to Charter Act 1813. Yes, right. So clearly it is, so both of them are actually associated with the Charter Act. So it allowed the East India Company to retain possessions of the Indian territories for a fixed period of 20 years. No, it was for the period for the period which was actually which was suggested by the Parliament, you know, for as long as the Parliament would want, or if it changes the period otherwise. So clearly this is again not the correct statement. First three statements are not correct. So yes, for the first time declared that no Indian was to be denied employment under the company on the basis of religion, color, birth, and descent. So it is the Charter Act of 1833, right? It is the Charter Act of 1833. तो यहाँ पे तो कोई भी मतलब all of the good part is that यहाँ पे कोई भी statement सही नहीं है जो हमें बहुत directly पता चल जाता है. And the bad part is that none of them is the correct option here. So yes, clearly, right? So yes, it's all very direct. There is not much to it, but certainly it is very important that while you are preparing for modern Indian history, it becomes very important that you are navigating through you're navigating through the entire scheme of things over and over again, because if a simple question like this is asked and you're not marking it right, or for that matter you have to think twice about it, so that is one moment where you are actually not very much at par with your competitors, right? So yes, let's just see. With reference to the British rule in India, consider the following. So yes, interest paid on loans taken by the East India Company from Britain, salaries and pensions of the company's employees in India, funds used to support the India office in London. Which of the following were the constituents of home charges, a significant part of drain of wealth from India to Britain? So yes, all of them, along with what? Along with the dividends that were actually enjoyed by the stakeholders of the company, along with the plus the dividends, right? तो वो dividends भी जो है उनको मिलते थे. So clearly stakeholders को, so clearly all of these three have contributed to the home charges, right? So yes, which eventually contributed to drain of wealth, and Dada Bhai Nauroji, R.C. Dutt. So clearly, all of them are associated with the theory. Yes, let us just see. Medieval Indian history. Yes, let us just see. So yes, in context of medieval India, for what purpose were Takkavi loans primarily sanctioned by the state? So it is again a very direct question. आपको आता है तो आपको आता है, अगर आपको नहीं आता है तो फिर आपको नहीं आता है. But besides being a direct question, it is also a simple question. So yes, to support farmers in agricultural activities, to finance overseas trade ventures of traders and merchants, to strengthen the military capabilities of nobles, to fund religious and city education in temples and mosques. It was actually the first one, agricultural activities, right? But Takvi loans किन्होंने जो है शुरू किए थे? So it was Muhammad bin Tughlaq. मोहम्मद बिन तुगलक, certainly very very important with regard to Takkavi loans. यहाँ पे अगर हम देखें तो मोहम्मद बिन तुगलक certainly a very important name. मोहम्मद बिन तुगलक के बारे में it is very important that you should know that it was Ibn Battuta who also visited during his reign, right? So what did he write? He wrote Rihla, and Ibn Battuta was also made the Qazi. He was also made the Qazi of Delhi. So yes, so he wrote Rihla, and which also gives us a major chunk of information about it. यहाँ पे तकवी loans के लिए तो यहाँ पे मतलब there is not much that can really be spoken about. So yes, it was during Muhammad bin Tughlaq, and these were the loans. And Muhammad bin Tughlaq, if we look at it, so clearly he had a very different kind of a reign altogether. And one of the major blunders that he made was to impose, and this was considered one of the mistakes, the popular mistakes of Muhammad bin Tughlaq, the blunders that he made. So he thought that it would be very crucial to have taxes, more an increased tax in Ganga Yamuna Doab. बट वहां पे हुआ क्या कि जिस समय उन्होंने टैक्स लगाया उसी साल सूखा पड़ गया. सो क्लियरली इट वाज famines, so people were not very happy and they were very very agitated about the entire scheme of affairs with regard to his taxation policy, right? So yes, to support farmers in agricultural activities. Next one, ancient India. With reference to history of India, a record of Buddhist religion as practiced in India and in Malay archipelago and is a text attributed to which of the following? So यहाँ पे if you look at it, so Mahuan, no, certainly not. Fahin, no. Fugozi, right? Fugozi लिखा था इन्होंने. And Huan Sang Siyuki. And then Itzing. Itzing is the right option here. Itzing visited during the reign of Chalukyas and Pallavas. It is very important that you should know that he visited during the reign of Chalukyas and Pallavas. Chalukyas and Pallavas, and he gives us a very good account not only of Chalukyas and Pallavas but also of Guptas. That is also something that you should know कि गुप्तास के टाइम का भी हमारे पास बहुत अच्छा अकाउंट मिलता है सिंह के अकाउंट से. दूसरी चीज, ये कहाँ कहाँ गए थे? ये गए थे नालंदा. So he spent a good deal of time in Nalanda plus Sumatra as well, right? Plus Sumatra as well. Okay, so it is very important that you should have this fair this fair amount of information. Chalukyas and Pallavas है भाई. Pallavas अगर आ रहा है तो इसका मतलब you have to keep it on your radar. तो इसका मतलब ये है that ithing also becomes important. I mean, certainly, you know, there is so much. There's only so much that one can really do, but it is my responsibility to tell you that it is very important that you kind of keep these things on your radar, because they are very, very important, right? And early medieval India is again very important. Early medieval India thoda karke jayega, kyunki now the kind of questions that are asked, they are broadly asked from early medieval India. And if you look at it, so they do not really ask very difficult questions from early medieval India, but they ask from chronology. They have been asking questions based on chronology. एंड क्रोनोलॉजी से अगर वो पूछ रहे हैं तो इसका मतलब ये है कि इट बिकम्स इम्पोर्टेंट. कम से कम एक बार उस पर अपनी नजर दौड़ा ली इस तरीके से, राइट? सो यस, ग्रेट. सो Huen sang during Harshvardhan and then Fahin during Chandragupta too, right? Yes. All right, great. Consider the following statements regarding the rural society in ancient and early medieval South India. तो एंशंट एंड अर्ली मिडिवल साउथ इंडिया अगर हम उसके बारे में देखें, सो यस, चोलर्स वर वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट हियर, राइट? तो ये जो टर्म्स हैं, दे आर वेरी टॉपिकल टू द चोलर्स, द चोल एम्पायर. यस, द चोलर्स, राइट? यहाँ पे अगर हम देखें तो ये वी विल डिस्कस ऑल ऑफ इट, बट इट इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट टू अंडरस्टैंड हियर दैट चोलास को जो हमें एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन के बारे में पता चलता है, वो इन टर्म्स के बारे में हमें कहाँ से पता चलता है? सो दैट इज फ्रॉम उत्तर मेरूर इंस्क्रिप्शन. सो यू हैव टू मेक श्योर that you whenever somebody asks you about the administration of Cholas, so there is no way that Uttar Merur inscription does not really come to your mind, right? So yes, Uttar Merur inscription. Uttar Merur inscription. So Ur was the Brahmin assembly in the Brahmadeya villages. No, it was not a Brahmin assembly first of all. दूसरी चीज यहाँ पे ये है, it was the basic unit of village. It was a basic village unit. Okay, so it was not associated with the Brahmana assembly in Brahmadeya villages, but rather it was since the basic unit of village. So yes, it was Ur. Sabha was the corporate assembly of non-Brahmadeya's villages. So again, no. Sabha was the corporate assembly of Brahmadeya villages, and it constituted the Brahmins. It actually constituted the Brahmins, and that too there were conditions, you know, with regard to the property that a certain Brahmin had, or for that matter, there were other kinds of criteria as well, that a particular Brahmin could actually participate in a sabha like this. Velalar was a group of peasants or cultivators. Yes, that is absolutely true. So Velalar, a very, very common term. So yes, you come across Velalars across different time periods in South Indian history, and especially with regard to, strictly speaking, especially with regard to the regions associated with Tamil Nadu. So clearly Velalars who were associated with the agricultural community, right? Peasants, yes, clearly. So it is third one. So yes, C, 3 only, which is C, right? Yes, 34, C, great. Perfect. Next one. So archaeological site description state. Let us just see. Surkotada. Surkotada के बारे में अगर हम देखें, it was the only city of Harappan civilization that was divided into 3 parts: Citadel, Middle Town, and Lower Town. And yes, let us just see. So clearly it is not the correct option here. It is actually not the correct option here. Why? Because clearly Surkotada was not, this was actually Dholavira. This was Dholavira, where one sees a certain kind of a planning like this, right? So clearly it is not correct. And if you look at it, so Surkotada is also that one place which also has the remains of a certain kind of an equine, a horse-like animal. Why do I say horse-like animal? Because clearly Upinder Singh, scholars like Upinder Singh, they have strongly contested that maybe those were not the remains of horse, but maybe of a donkey, of an arse, right? So clearly it is not very, it is not correct to call it horse. Again, I'm reiterating it because clearly in one of the PYQs, even the UPSC, when it released the answer key with regard to a similar statement, so it also kind of reiterated the assumption that there were no, the Harappan people were not aware of horse, right? So yes, so Kotada is very popular for those remains, and this site is Dholavira, but the state is correct here. All right. Adi Chanalur, it flourished as a prominent center of megalithic cultures. Tamil Nadu, yes. Tamil Nadu, yes. So clearly megalithic cultures के बारे में अगर हम बात करें, roughly, I'm going to give you a very rough estimate, roughly around 1500 to 500 BC, right? And यहाँ पे अगर हम देखेंगे, so towards the later part of megalithic period, so one sees a very strong presence of iron as well. So a strong presence of iron, yes. And the site is also in Adi Chanalur. This year megalithic sites are also very important. Why? Because clearly in 2024 they had mentioned the megalithic megalithic site, and उन्होंने megalithic word mention किया था. So clearly it becomes very important that you are perusing just like you do Harappan sites. So you should also try and look through the megalithic sites as well. So Par was a site of a major rock edict of Ashok. It is in Maharashtra. So I hope that you have already been able to assimilate the places of the 14 major rock edicts. So yes, it is in Maharashtra. It is true. तो ये वाला ऑप्शन गलत है. I've marked it right because of Gujarat, but no. तो ये हमने देखा था. So this is wrong, and this is correct. And so yes, let us just see. Chiran, it was an important site of India's Chalcolithic culture. ठीक है, yes, Chalcolithic culture से associated है, but it is not in Assam. It is rather in, it is rather, so it is not in Assam. It is rather in Bihar. Right, so yes, Chiran, very very important. Huts वगैरह के settlements वहाँ पे मिलते हैं हमें. So yes, like typical daub huts rather. So yes, clearly that is not the place is not given correctly here. So yes, it is Bihar and not Assam, right? Great, perfect. All right, so it has been a wonderful session, and the questions have rather, yes, they have rather been in sync. They have largely been in sync with the kind of questions that are asked in UPSC, but we should really have an advanced level of preparation. And I always tell you, in every discussion I've only kind of emphasized only so much on the importance of the PYQs, ancient Indian history, medieval Indian history, modern as well, and art and culture especially. So if you are able to kind of make a note, take a note on the options that are actually given there, तो मेरे ख्याल से आपका काम अच्छे से चल जाएगा. You will be able to kind of navigate through the questions in a very comfortable, in a very convenient manner. You will not really have to struggle a lot, right? All right. So now that the prelims is verging closer, so I really wish you all the very best, and I really hope that you dedicate yourselves completely to the preparation and do not really bother about any kinds of rumors, whether it is going to get postponed or something, because no, our job is to kind of stay focused and to stay very very kind of study very diligently for it. And it is very important that we stay very very committed, just like our soldiers are committed at the border. All right, thank you everyone. Please take good care of yourselves.
Good afternoon, everyone. Let's begin the discussion for geography, simulator X. Indus river system is always important. The Beas River is the only river of the Indus River system that flows entirely within India. Okay. The Wular Lake, one of the largest freshwater lakes in India, is drained by the Chenab. Now, this we know. This is a statement that has also been mentioned in NCERT. This is Pir Panjal Range. This is Greater Himalayas. This is Varinag Spring. Now, from here, the river originates. That is Jhelum. It meanders in its young age. Now, this is Wular Lake. This is Dal Lake. And finally, it moves out. Okay, so this is wrong. If 2 is wrong, I can eliminate. And now I have the answer. If you just know the statement 2, and this is a statement that they talk about in NCERT. So now you have +2 marks. So let us see more. The Ravi River originates near the Rohtang Pass in the Kullu Hills. Yes, this is true. The under Indus Water Treaty, which has been brokered by World Bank, India has exclusive rights over the waters of the Indus, Ravi and Beas. Indus, Ravi and Beas. Now this is again incorrect. If you see, this is Indus, this is Jhelum, this is Chenab, this is Ravi, this is Beas, this is Satluj. These 3 rivers, Indus, Jhelum, Chenab, these are west flowing rivers. India has only 20% right. Whereas Ravi, Beas, Satluj, these are east flowing rivers. India has 100% exclusive rights. Okay, so this statement is again wrong. This is wrong. So now we have come to know that this is right. But you see, there is a catch in this statement. This statement can also be proven wrong. It is saying is the only river of the Indus river system among its major tributaries. Among its major tributaries. Because there can be another river called as Janskar River. Okay. Or there could be various other tributaries of Indus that could be totally entirely within India. That is Shyok. Okay. So here the statement, when it says among its major tributaries, then I think this statement is going to be more perfectly correct. So the answer is going to be B. Moving next. Major hot deserts in the northern hemisphere. So let us see the hot deserts are predominantly located between 20 to 30 degree north latitude. Yes, we have seen here. Okay. Atacama Desert, Sahara Desert, and here Thar Desert. And if I say Australia, this is Victorian Desert. All are located on the western margins of the continents. Okay. I'm a bit wrong here. This is equator I am saying. So this is 20 to 30 degree, this zone. Okay. Sahara, here I can say Thar Desert. Or here if I have to say northern hemisphere USA, here is Sonoran and Mojave. Sonoran and Mojave. The reason this. So it is saying what is a reasoning. If I say if this is where the trade winds converges and it rises convectionally at the equator, then here at the horse latitude the wind subsides, and as the wind subsides because of adiabating heating and compression, the descending wind is warmer in nature. As a result, the majority of the deserts are located in the horse latitude along the western margins of the continent, because here the trade winds are offshore winds. They are offshore in nature, thus they are dry. And at the western margins, there is also presence of cold currents, which provides desiccating effect to the deserts. So the answer is going to be A. Okay, next. ये वाला tropical cyclones that develop in either northern or southern hemisphere do not cross the equator. Okay. So it is saying that if this is this is Africa. It is saying if a cyclone originates here, the cyclone will not travel either in the hemisphere. The north will not travel to the south will not travel to the north. The Coriolis force is absent at the equator. We know for the Coriolis force, which is an apparent force, the formula goes it is directly proportional to sine theta. And theta at equator is 0. So Coriolis force is equals to 0. So this statement is correct. But is it explaining the statement 1? Statement 1 is also correct. The cyclones do not cross the equator. So what are the criteria for the formation of cyclones? For the formation of cyclones, we know sea surface temperature must be greater than equal to 27 degrees centigrade. Weak vertical shear must be there. Low pressure depressions must be there. That is a presence of ITCZ. Presence of Coriolis force. Now, Coriolis force is necessary for the wind, converging winds to create a rotating column of vertical movement of air. Okay. And finally, the fifth one is upper divergence of air. So if you see, this factor is a must factor for the formation of cyclones. And thus I can say, yes, it explains the statement 1. Next. They are asking about the mapping. If we see here, we know 𝐿usha. 𝐿usha is also known as Mizo Hills. Bareil. Bareil is along the border of Manipur, Assam. It is from here that the Barak river originates. Finally, we see Mikir. Mikir is in Assam here. And there is Dafla. Dafla is here. This is Dafla. This is Mikir. This is Bareil. And this is 𝐿usha. So now you have north to south or south to north, whatever they are asking. Moving ahead. They are saying temperature inversion. We know what is the temperature inversion. In general parlance, there is normal lapse rate. That is, the temperature decreases with increasing altitude, because we know the atmosphere gets heated from below because of the long wave terrestrial radiation. But there is a anomaly. It is that instead of decrease, the temperature increases with increasing altitude. So here I am saying that the temperature decreased and then increased and then decreased. Now this is a phenomena of temperature inversion. Okay. Increase in temperature with increasing altitude. Yes, 1 is correct. With this I have removed B and C. So now what are the criteria for the temperature inversion phenomena to occur? First is long winter nights, because the lower parcel of air get enough time to absorb coldness from the land, because we know land gets colder easily. Second, we know little horizontal movement of wind. Clear sky. Why clear sky is necessary? Because consider this is ground and these are clouds. If the sky is not clear and there are presence of clouds, you see what happens? The outgoing terrestrial radiation gets trapped by these clouds. And as a result, this parcel of air that is situated close to the ground will not get sufficiently cold. Okay, if it does not get sufficiently cold, then this layer will not be warmer as relative to this portion of the partial air. Okay, so this is very important criteria. It commonly occurs during cloudy sky. We wrong, it cannot occur during cloudy sky. It facilitates the formation of smoke by accelerating the vertical air movement. It is saying accelerating the vertical movement here. But you see, if we see this zone is acting as a lid. Okay, now this zone is acting as a lid because here the temperature is rising with increasing altitude. So what we see is the convectional movement gets hindered. Okay, it does not, the convectional movement is not facilitated. As a result, the pollutant gets trapped, and which results in the formation of smoke, that is smoke plus fog. Fog because the lower portion of the air is already very cold. It is a common phenomena over polar regions. Yes, one of the another factor is snow-covered surfaces. Because snow-covered surfaces will further facilitate the cooling of the lower parcel of air. So we know 2 and 3 is wrong. So now we know the answer is going to be 1 and 4. Next. Here you see, India is the largest producer in the world. We know India is the largest producer of milk. India, tea, we know China is the largest producer of tea. So tea cannot be there, tea cannot be there. Even we are not the largest producer of, okay, tobacco. We are not the largest producer of tobacco. We just need to know that tea in China is the largest producer. Pulses, 25% production of the world comes from India. Okay, even we are, but you see here answer is jute, but this could be a controversial. Recent report by FAO suggests that Bangladesh has overtaken India in becoming one of the largest producers of jute in the world. Okay, so please cross verify this portion whether jute. Okay, we will also see, and then the addendum will be provided to all of you. Next we are seeing, which of the following is the current order of the given mountain passes? You see, this year passes are important. I am hoping that you all are ready with the passes. So if I say Shipkila, we all know it is the place in the Kinnaur district where the Satluj enters India. Lipu Lake, we all know Lipu Lake is a tri-junction between India, Nepal and China. It facilitates the Kailash Mansarovar Yatra, and it was in news few years back because of the Kala Pani dispute between India and Nepal. Bomdila, we know Bomdila is in news because India has created Sela Pass. It is this zone that connects to the Tawang region of India. Okay, and finally Bomdila. Bomdila is located in Sikkim. Okay, so now we all know the locations. Please here remember these: Umlingla, Lanala, Lanakla, Imlingla. All these passes are located in this zone. You must remember the passes over here where Chinese incursions have been frequent over last few months. Moving ahead. Next. According to the Food and Agricultural Organization, over 10% of the global land area is affected by salinity, which can pose a threat to long-term food security. FAO has released a report, The Status of Salinity Affected Areas, where it talks about this phenomena. Now, as a candidate, I may be confused whether are they saying FAO? Is FAO correct or is 10% correct? But we know food and agriculture. The very purpose of FAO is to ensure the food security. And we know the status of health is a paramount factor in ensuring the food security. So yes, here I am saying that maybe this is correct because it is matching with the status of soil and agricultural production are two sides of the same coin. So now my mind is saying, are they going to trap me 10%? But before I decide or conclude, because we generally have seen that conventionally digits are wrong. But you see, it is not always the correct. It is to be seen in perspective of the question. So now coming to statement 2. It is saying that if this is a soil and there are higher salinity levels, this means higher sodium, presence of sodium. So what happened? It increases the osmotic pressure of the soil solution. So now consider that this is a plant. Plant will try to take the water from the soil solution But it is saying that if there is high osmotic pressure, then what happens? The plants are not able to extract water from the soil solution. It is true. If you remember the process of osmosis. In osmosis, what happens? Consider this and this. Consider here 10 units of solute are there. And here consider 5 units of solute are there. But we see the volume of solvent is very high. So I can see that here the osmotic pressure is more because here the presence of solute particles are more. So as a result, what happens? The water will flow from here to here. Sorry, here it is low pressure. Okay. So the water flows from this to this. Sorry, it is high, so the water will flow from this to this. This is how scientifically it is going to be. So here as a result, what happens? Because here the solute particles are more, the water flows rather from the plant to the soil and not from the soil to the plant. This osmotic phenomena, because there is high osmotic pressure. And another issue with the soil salinity is that if there is high presence of sodium, then sodium competes with necessary ingredients such as potassium and nitrogen to enter the plants. And thus it can cause nutritional deficiency in the plants. So yes, this is a true statement. But now once I'm saying that the statement is explaining statement 1 properly, how soil salinity is affecting the food production across the globe. But so here you see this 10% almost becomes very redundant. And I am hoping that they will not trap me in digit from a particular report by the international institution until and unless this digit is known very widely among the candidates. So here you see this explains it and the answer is going to be A. Next, Black Sea. This is Aegean Sea, that is in the Mediterranean. This is Sea of Marmara. This is Black Sea. This is Sea of Azov. Now we see some important straits. Strait of Dardanelles, Strait of Bosphorus, and this is Strait of Kerch. So here we see it is Turkey. Here it is Georgia. Here it is Russia. Here it is Ukraine. Moldova does not. Okay, Moldova does not. Here Armenia does not. Bulgaria, Romania, Greece does not. So I can say Georgia is there, Bulgaria is there, Armenia is not there, Moldova is not there, Turkey is there. So now you know the answer. Next, Sambhar Lake, Rajasthan, largest inland saltwater lake in India. True. Kanwar Lake, it is in Bihar. It is the largest oxbow lake created by Burhi Gandak. And this Sambhar Lake is surrounded by Aravalis from all sides, and this is where the lake is. Palikat Lake, it is not in Odisha, it is at the border of Tamil Nadu and Andhra Pradesh, and it is not the largest lagoon, it is the second largest lagoon in India. The largest lagoon is Chilika Lake, which is situated in the state of Odisha, and Nalabana Bird Sanctuary is located here. In Palikat Bird Sanctuary is located here. So now we know the answer, only one is correct. Next. Now this is a tough question. Okay, but you see they have a habit of asking this question. Amazon you should know. Niger, because of Ukraine issue, you should know. And Niger, African rivers are always important. So this is how it is flowing, Niger. And Nigeria is here. So even if I don't know exactly what is the origin of the river, but I know it is in Nigeria, Gulf of Guinea, where the river drains. So yes, I can cut this. It originates in Guinea. Next, Teesta, everybody know, it originates at the foothills of the Kanchenjunga, that is Teesta 𝐾𝐭𝐤 Glacier. It flows through Sikkim, West Bengal, and finally enters Bangladesh and joins Brahmaputra. So yes, it originates in the drains into Bay of Bengal. Amazon. It is saying we know ki Amazon is this. This is how Amazon is shown. But what is the origin of the Amazon? The origin of the Amazon is Peru. And it drains into Atlantic Ocean, but this is wrong. And finally, Dnieper. Dnieper originates from Russia and drains into Black Sea. So now you must be ready with rivers that drains into Black Sea. Dnieper, Dniester, Danube, Don. These are the four main rivers. Remember, Volga drains into Caspian Sea. Po drains into Mediterranean. Rhone drains into Mediterranean. Seine drains into Atlantic, North Sea. Okay? Elbe drains into North Sea. Rhine drains into North Sea. Some of the major rivers we have seen of the Europe. So with this, we know only one is correct. Next. Agriculture Infrastructure Fund. It is a centrally sponsored scheme. I don't know. Farmer producer organizations are eligible beneficiaries under the scheme. The statement is saying okay. But I don't know whether they are eligible yet or not. So let us move ahead. All loans under the scheme. It is saying all loans. Now I know that this could be a trap here. Have an interest subvention of 3% per annum for a maximum period of 5 years. So now you see, maybe I am not knowing what is this. And based on the convention, first I will try to solve this question. So I'm removing 3. I'm removing 3. With this, I have come to know that 2 is going to be correct. And with this, I have come to know that 1 is not correct. So it is a central sector scheme. So now it is 4 that is the deciding statement for me. The scheme provides direct equity investment. It is saying equity investment. You see, government will not buy equities. Government is not going to be an investor where I will give you 10 crore rupees and I will take 10% of your equity from your company. No, rather the main purpose of this fund is to create infrastructural growth to minimize the post-harvest losses. Okay, so government provides fund to eligible FPOs as well as other individuals who are interested in creating infrastructures once the product moves out of farm gate. Why this is wrong? It is not all loans, only loans up to 2 crore will have a interest subvention of 3% for a maximum period of 7 years. So now we know the answer. This you could have used your brain. Why government will buy equities? It is the investor who buys equities. Government is a welfare state where government should promote infrastructural growth. Next. The same face of the moon always faces the earth. We all know. The earth and moon rotate in the same direction. Yes. Moon is tidally locked with the earth. Yes, this is the reason. Tidally locked with the earth means the time taken by the moon to revolve around the earth and the time taken by it to rotate on its axis are same. As a result, what happens? We always get to see the same side of the. So answer is going to be, but only one of them. Explain statement 1. Now let us see this question. They have asked one type of question last year, and these questions you cannot blunder. You will have enough options here to reject the options. Annual range of temperature is high. Once I am seeing annual range of temperature is high, okay, maybe they are talking about deserts. But you see, those which are located on the coastal locations, I hope you see the annual range is not going to be very high until and unless it has sharp cold and hot seasons. So then precipitation occurs mainly during summers. The moment I see this, I know Mediterranean is gone because here rainfall occurs in winter. Occurrence of intense typhoons. Now you see, annual range of temperature is high, marine west coast climate. It is talking about British climate. We know during cold seasons, the North Atlantic drift carries warm water. As a result, the temperature of the western portion of the European continents are moderated. So here the annual range of temperature is not going to be high. So I'm rejecting 1 from B, 2 from A. Now occurrence of intense typhoons. You see, this is a key word for only one type of season, only one type of climate. That is China type of climate. Laurentia, if this is China type of climate, Laurentia is found here. Japan, okay, South Korea, this portion. Here typhoons do not occur. From this, you can just say China type of climate is the answer. We know if this is the sun, if this is the earth, these are the magnetic fields. We know these are the solar flares. The solar flares comes and interacts here. And we know as a result what happens? Aurora borealis can be seen. So let us see. It is talking about geomagnetic storms. It is talking about these or the storms. These are disturbances in the Earth's magnetic fields caused by solar activity. Yes. These storms can lead to the formation of auroras in lower latitudes of Earth. Why is it saying lower latitudes? Once we have already known that Aurora Australis and Aurora Borealis, they both occur nearby Scandinavian countries and Antarctica and Australia. So, am I going to mark this option correct? Saying lower latitudes? But it is saying can lead to the formation. Yes, this statement has been picked up from a current affairs where Ladakh witnessed Aurora Borealis. Okay, and it can interrupt the shortwave radio communication. Yes, it can interrupt the radio communication. So the answer is going to be 1, 2, and 3. Next question. Let us see currents. We know Labrador current is cold current. It comes from here. And it is saying warm ocean currents, remove. Humboldt current, Peru current comes from here. It is cold current, move. Venezuela current moves from here. It is cold current, move. But Mozambique comes from this side. So it is warm current. And 𝐾𝐻 flows here. The North Atlantic equatorial current moves one as 𝐾𝐻 and another as Antilles. So it is also warm. So the answer is going to be only 2. Next. This is a very good question. International Space Station, we know thermosphere. It is a factual, you must know. If you don't know, it will be very difficult. I could have removed stratosphere. But mesosphere and thermosphere, it can confuse me. Next. Environment. Recently, the government of India announced the carbon credit trading scheme. Under this, 2 mechanisms are there. Okay, under one mechanism, the obligated industries. Here, there will be industries have been obligated to reduce certain percentage or certain units of carbon emissions. Consider a company has been given 10 units. But now this company reduces 12 units. So now for 2 units, he will be given carbon trading certificate. Another mechanism is for non-obligated industries. But still, if they manage through technology transfer or through technological innovations, even then they will be entitled to get the same energy certificates which they can trade in the market. Okay, so this responsibility, this mechanism has been created under Energy Conservation Amendment Act, where Bureau of Energy Efficiency will be the one who will implement it. Next, heat waves. We know heat waves will come under disaster, and it is Indian Meteorological Department. Heat wave is climatology. So it is IMD under Ministry of Earth Science that will do it. Heat waves are officially included as notified disasters. No, they are also known as silent disaster. Because so many people die because of heat waves, but they do not get the compensation because they are not notified as disasters under the DM Act. And southern states of India are more prone. This is outrightly wrong. Southern states will be moderated by the presence of ocean from the three sides. It is the northern hemisphere, northern portion or northern India, where the presence of continentality as well as the presence of Thar desert, where the subsiding anticyclonic conditions persist. And as a result, the cold, the warm winds blow. And this is true. You must remember this data. 40-degree plains, 30-degree hills. Okay. HRM 99. Now, generally, we have seen that A in such statements, A is the answer, but this is not A. Okay. HRM 99 is a type of apple variety that has been grown. Okay. Generally, apple grows in temperate regions, but now apple can be grown even in tropical and subtropical areas. Gharial, we know, they have already asked, critically endangered. Dugong, UPSC has asked, Gulf of Mannar. Great Indian bustard, we know generally it is Rolaparu Wildlife Sanctuary. It is in Andhra Pradesh. We also find Great Indian bustard here. But the main house of this is Desert National Park, which is present in Jaisalmer district. 2 districts. No, only in Jaisalmer. Lion-tailed macaw is formed in Western Ghats. If you have to see, go and see the Silent Valley National Park. Bal Fakram National Park is in Meghalaya. Here we get to see red panda. So this question could have been done. We all know all 4 are important species. Okay. This 2 to easily done. This we know Western Ghat, remove it. This could have been difficult. Rolapadu. But we could see this could have confused. Because Rolapadu, you see, is a name which can give you a feeling that it is not present in Rajasthan. Rolapadu. It has to be somewhere in South India. And then, but we know that certain number of Great Indian bustards are also found in Gujarat, Maharashtra, Andhra Pradesh. Okay. But still difficult question. B heavy molasses. Molasses, we know there are 2 things out of sugarcane. One is bagasse and another is molasses. Bagasse is one where we chew the sugarcane and we throw it. It is used for energy. Molasses is the juice. So it is an intermediate byproduct obtained during the sugar manufacturing process. Yes. Among all feedstocks used for ethanol production, BHM contributes the highest share. Maybe, I don't know, or may not be. The government of India has recently completely banned the use of BHM for ethanol production. You see, these 2 statements cannot go there together. If it is contributing the highest share, government can reduce the usage. Government cannot completely ban, or else it will just devastate the ethanol production industry, where we have already seen that India is pushing hard towards renewable energies. So now this is 2 statements are inconsistent. But you see, completely banned are statements which we generally do not go with. So I'm removing C, 3. But still I'm left with 1 and 2. So now we know this is a generic statement. The question is does BHM contributes the highest share? Now, this is where you can go with your instinct. Okay? But generally, we have seen that in India, crops we are not diverting. But we know India produces sugarcane in large amounts. And sometimes we have seen that we can overproduce sugars. Okay? So, in order to ensure that the prices of sugars are also moderated, sometimes we divert. And yes, this statement is correct. It contributes the highest share. Next, one-horn rhinoceros. If you have to see rhinoceros, one is African white rhinoceros. African white rhinoceros. This is the largest species. Then is Indian rhinoceros. It has 1 horn. Then comes Javan rhinoceros. It has also 1 horn. And then comes Sumatran rhinoceros. It is the smallest species and it has 2 horns. So this is how the size decreases. African more than Indian, more than Javan, more than Sumatran. But remember, Indian and Javan both have only 1 horns. Sumatra has 2 horns. They are omnivorous? No. They are strictly herbivorous. They do not eat flesh. So if I remove 1, they are generally found in large groups. No, they are solitary. They move alone. This is why they are very big species. They lack sweat glands, making them prone to overheating. Yes, so you will see they will mostly cover themselves in muddy water, or they will enter rivers and wetlands. They are the smallest round. Sumatra is the smallest, over 3/4. So once we know 2 and 4 is wrong, we know 3 is the answer. This means, yes, Kaziranga National Park has the highest population. Next, Protected Planet Report is correct. I don't know this report. Okay, I'm seeing it for the first time, but I have to find the answer. The report was published. Generally, we have seen that the name of the institutions is wrong. So for the time being, I am marking it wrong. It is the first official global evaluation of progress towards this. Maybe, may not be. There is no deadly term here. The report states that a greater proportion of the world's ocean and coastal waters, it is saying ocean and coastal waters, are protected and conserved compared to land and inland waters. You see, we have seen that the ocean is the largest dumping ground in the world. So why it is saying a greater proportion of the world's ocean and coastal waters are protected? Rather, the land and the inland waters are protected. So this is wrong. According to report, all key biodiversity areas are now partially or fully protected. Again, this is wrong. All cannot be there. Why they are using all? So on a safer side, I will go with this, and yes, you must read this Kunming Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. You must read Cali Fund. You must read Digital Sequence Information. You must remember the number of targets which are there. 30 into 30 means 30% of land and 30% of the ocean must be protected and conserved by 2030. This is important. They have not asked. This is under CBD. Convention on United Nations Convention on Biological Diversity. Next, persistent organic pollutants. We know this means it is talking about Stockholm Convention. Polychlorinated biphenyls. Yes, it is included under the name dirty dozens. Per and polyfluoric substances. Yes, they are known as forever chemicals. 2024 UPSC. It is widely used in plastics, cooking utensils, packaging materials. Then you see polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. Yes. Peroxylacetyl nitrate. No. This is a secondary pollutant which is created or is a constituent of, yes, NOx plus volatile organic compounds under the presence of sunlight will create peroxyacetyl nitrite plus tropospheric ozone. Okay. And furans and dioxins? Yes. So the answer is going to be only 4. Next. Methanol poisoning. Now this is difficult question. Methanol poisoning, you see what happens? Inhalation of methanol will lead to creation of formaldehyde, which formaldehyde in turn will break down into formic acid. So metabolic acidosis means creation of large amount of acid in your body. Partial or complete blindness, central nervous system. This is not there. This is not an hyper. It is increase in percentage of calcium in the body. Now this is difficult question. You can't do anything. You will not know what is hypercalcemia or what is metabolic acidosis. So such questions you can only go with 5, or you can leave the question. Okay, but do not expect or pressurize yourself if you do blunder in such questions. Next, you cannot do blunder in such questions. Namdafa, critically endangered. We know Namdafa, Arunachal. Leaf-lidded leaf, critically endangered. It is found in Kolar, Karnataka. It is found only there. Jenkins shrew is found in Andaman and Nicobar. It is also critically endangered. Nilgiri Thar, we know, is endangered, and it is found in Eraviculum National Park. So the answer is going to be 3. How many of them are notified as tiger reserves? We know Gir is not a tiger reserve. Okay. So now, and then we know Madhav is there, Simlipal is there, Kaziranga is there. Silent Valley is also not there. Easy questions. I can't do here anything. You have to know. You know. Spawn cities, we know those cities which are acting as wetlands, where excessive rainfall will not lead to floods, because these wetlands will absorb the excess water by acting as a sink. So they are urban areas designed to absorb, store and filter. And finally, coming to this question, they're asking examples of commensalism. Commensalism, we know, plus 0. One will get benefited, one will not be either harmed or benefited. An orchid growing as an epiphyte, yes, orchid derives its nutrition from the mango tree. Barnacles growing on the body of whales, yes. E. coli residing in the large intestine of humans. Now this is mutualism. Okay. Why? Because we are giving habitat to E. coli, and E. coli is improving the gut health of human. Tapeworm, we know this is parasitic. And the cattle tigre foraging in the area, yes, it is also true, because whenever the cattle will overgraze and uproot the shrubs or the weeds, the uprooting part will loosen up the soil. As a result, the insects within the loosened soils will be used as a food by cattle egret. So the answer is going to be only 3. Next. How many of them are fruits? Fruits means where the flowers will turn into fruit. And it must have seeds. Now difficult question. All of them are correct. Okay. You can't do anything in such question. In exam, you may end up thinking tomato, everybody will know. Cucumber, you may think. Okra means lady finger. Now to think brinjal is very difficult. How brinjal is a fruit. Next. The frothing observed in the Yamuna river is this. Yes. So before we move, let me tell you surface tension. Surface tension means what it does. The surface of the water will constrict. That is what is the quality of surface tension. But once we add surfactant has 2 things. One portion is hydrophilic, that fears water, and one other loves water. One is hydrophobic, that fears water. So the philic water portion, what it does, it increases the surface tension of the water. It means it will stretch the surface of the water, and it will attach itself to the molecules of the water. As a result, what happens? The water can now further penetrate deeper into the objects which are being washed. Surf powders, in surf excel, okay, tights, we use surfactants. So this discharge in this contains high levels of surfactants, which have the unique property of reducing the surface tension of the water. Yes, as it reduces the surface tension of the water, it will now enable it to create a bond, which in turn will try to create foams, frothing. This is why when we wash our clothes with either detergents or detergent soap, this is why there is enough foam and frothing. So with this, we wind up the discussion. All the best. Thank you.